All right, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to our work session. It is Tuesday, January 27th at 6:02. My representative, roll call, please. Yes. Okay. Counselor Ford? Here. Counselor over here. Counselor Source over here. Counselor Gordon is excused. Counselor Martin Willis? Here. Mayor Swartzler? Here. Counselor Butler? Here. Counselor Roden? Present. Counselor Source? Here. Commissioner Frostlaw? Here. Commissioner Cohen? Here. Commissioner Southgate? Here. Chair Capel? Here. Commissioner Oliveros? Here. And Commissioner Tuckman and Jay are excused. All right, and welcome to our new. Nice to have you here. With that, I'm gonna talk to Fred and Sean. Fred and Sean, will lead us off.
Perfect. So hi, thank you for attending this discussion tonight at this work session about more housing, same great neighborhood project. You will remember we started this project a while ago as we started looking at really how to do infill in the community. You'll remember that the impetus of this was basically our housing needs analysis and then the housing production strategy. And as part of that housing production strategy, some of the key action items that it identified included allowing a wider range of middle housing types and low density residential and medium density residential zones, allowing cottage cluster housing in residential areas, allowing for small lot detached homes in the medium density residential and high density residential zones, and then improving standards and review processes for small infill housing. And so basically, we had all those projects sort of in there, and then we had this project lined up and where we could start actually trying to implement some of these things from the housing production strategy. And so we are at the point where we are to a point where we have a draft. It is still a little bit rough at this point, but the planning commission will start looking at it at their next meeting. And I invited Matt Hasty and Emma Quinn here. I can't remember your last name. Smith. Emma Quinn Smith is here to give us an update about where we're at with the project. So that's what we're hoping to do tonight. So take it away, Matt and Quinn.
Awesome. Thanks, Fred. Thanks for having us here. Always good to see y'all. So you know you have a lot on your agenda tonight, so I'm going to try to keep my presentation pretty brief and high level. Refer to the materials that you have in front of you. You've got a couple of things. One are these kind of larger copies, which are the same as boards on the back. And the point of them, one is just to provide an overview of the project, the schedule, etc. Brett already kind of covered that, so I won't talk about that much. And then just to kind of give you a sense of visually, what are we proposing or what are we talking about? How, what would be allowed with these potential changes to the development code that we've got, as Fred said, a pretty good draft at this point, but still room for some changes and tweaks to it and more discussion and review of it. So we're just going to give you a quick overview of where we are now and what some of the proposed changes are to the code. The other thing that you have in front of you is this document, which is sort of a tabular summary of the types of changes that are being suggested to different sections within the code, different subchapters. This summarizes a much longer document that you will see soon. So this is just meant to give you a really high level summary. So I'm going to spend not too long, 10 minutes or so, talking about this, and then we'll be happy to consider your thoughts and comments, do our best to answer your questions, and then hopefully leave you plenty of time for all the other things on your agenda. So that's what I'll do. So as Fred said, we're at the point of having this draft code for y'all to look at. We have already kind of had a lot of discussion with staff about it. We've done a lot of refining already, but again, still more room for improvement on that. So a few kind of key things we're trying to do here to implement the recommendations from your housing production strategy. So Brett touched on a really key one, which is just expand the types or the forms of housing that could be allowed in some of these zones. And particularly middle housing types, so things like not just duplexes, because right now you allow duplexes on any piece of property where you allow a single detachment, right? So you already do that, that's a state requirement. But you also allow triplexes, quadplexes, as Fred said, cottage clusters, townhomes, at really about the same density, I guess use the word density, but to allow about the same number of homes as you allow now. A little more, but not a lot more, but just in different forms. So that's really kind of a big goal here, is just to expand the types of things that would be allowed on some of these property. And frankly, to do things that historically people did in Independence before zoning was in place. And I think some of you went, maybe a lot of you went on the field trip last time we were out here. We got here late, missed the trolley, so we didn't go on it. We did our own field trip while you were out there. And you saw a bunch of examples of this. So this is just kind of updating the code to allow those things to be developed again. So that's one. Two, as part of that, reduce the size of an individual lot or parcel that a dwelling could be on. So right now, again, you have a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet that you could put a duplex on. So that's 2 housing units on a 5,000 square foot lot. A lot of lots in these zones are just under 10,000 feet, you know, so they're 9,800, that a typical size, right? So right now you couldn't divide those into 2 5,000 square foot lots, but almost really close, right? So one of the recommendations here is to reduce the average minimum lot size per dwelling unit to 2,400. So that you could allow these things to be developed again in these infill situations. So that's the second main goal. And then third is just to make sure you have other standards in place within your code to reduce the potential for impacts or incompatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. So make sure you've got some design standards in place and some standards related to the size and height of new homes, so that they don't overwhelm the homes that are already in these neighborhoods. So those are kind of the overarching goals here. And again, that's kind of what we're trying to illustrate on some of these boards. These boards also sort of show how parking might be accommodated on the site in each case in these different configurations. And these are not meant to be like every configuration you could have under the development code, but they're meant to give you a sense of what some of the different options could be. So that's kind of what you have on the boards. I'll say a little bit about some of the things in this table, in this handout, but I'll try not to belabor it. You'll see in a couple of places a comment that says updates existing standards to ensure they are clear and objective. So that's one, it's a good idea, and two, it's a state requirement to make sure that if somebody reads your development code, they know what's required. And there's not a lot of confusion or discretion or question about what they can do. And it's a state law for any kind of housing, the standards have to be clear. So there's a variety of places within the code where we suggest, hey, change this language, not a lot, but a little bit at least, to make sure it's clear and objective. Some of that's just sort of taking out phrases like the greatest extent possible, because that's kind of open to discretion, phrases like that. So there's a lot of things like that. Some of the other things I'll point out are, I would say, more like housekeeping things, the things we talked about under subchapter 12 definitions. That is kind of reorganizing some of those definitions to group kind of, in some cases, like definitions together, and then put all the definitions in one part of your code. So you aren't looking at different parts of your code for definitions. I already kind of talked about what we're doing around allowed uses of expanding the types of housing that are allowed in these different zones. And then in terms of parking, just being clear about how many parking spaces are allowed for different types of housing, and trying to be consistent in that regard too, in terms of not requiring sort of more units for certain types of dwellings than others, frankly. So those are some of the changes there. And then we had your public works staff look at this draft of the code updates as well. And they have a number of suggestions, which are mostly just kind of around, I'm sure that development proceeds consistent with public works design standards as well. So there's a number of changes in the code that will kind of hit that overarching goal. So when you see the stuff in greater detail, you'll see a number of those kind of changes as well. So I think maybe I'll stop talking. Unless there's anything else, Fred wants to make sure I hit on, or PQ has anything I might have missed. There's more in here and there's more to come, but I just wanted to give you kind of a high level overview. And again, let you know that there's still plenty of room for changes and tweaks and refinements to the stuff. But I'll stop and just take questions, comments, etc.
What is the logic to go from, I know our lot sizes are about 9,800 square feet. Why not go to 4,900 if we're gonna divide these instead of getting to 2,400? That's gonna put 4 more potential units for what we have a house on historic district right now.
So at 4,900, you'd still actually be able to have 2
Right.
4 dwellings, but they have to be duplexes. So going to sort of an average of about 2,400 feet would allow for something other than just 2 duplexes, but that would still equal 4 units. And I think you currently allow more units in terms of row houses as well, or townhomes. So it's just kind of a small change in the allowed lot size, but allowing a greater number of options.
So and it kind of gets confusing. I mean, sort of the whole messaging around this kind of gets a little confusing. So the parallel for a single family house or a duplex, currently our standard is 5,000 square feet for a single family house or a duplex lot, 5,000 square feet. The comparable is what we're proposing in this code to be 4,800 square feet. So 200 square feet difference. 4,800 square feet for a single family home lot or a duplex lot. If you're going for a little more intensity on the lot, then it's, as Matt is saying, sort of a 2,400 square foot lot size average for the course of those other units. So you could potentially have a fourplex so long as you had 2,400 square feet for each of those units.
So am I also correct that when you're talking about, so 5,000 square feet currently, that's 2 townhomes, but if we talk about, so why wouldn't we say 4,800 square feet? But I think by going to 2,400 square feet, that allows for ownership attached housing. Whereas if we say we're reducing minimum lot size to 4,800 square feet, you either get a single family home or two attached units on that lot, but they're not allowed to be split, because they can only be on a single lot. And so if we say minimum lot size of 2,400 square feet, then you can have 2 attached units, each on their own lot. So you said just the difference of enabling ownership or not.
And that is another change to the development code would to allow for those kind of divisions. So for cities larger than yours, they are required to allow for what are called middle housing land divisions. And that does essentially allow for these lots to be subdivided, so there are more home ownership possibilities in those configurations. So you allow for them to be divided into those units can be on it. So why you're saying, look, that's an average of about 2,400 square feet. It's not a big change in what you allow now in terms of the number of units. It's really more of a change in terms of the ownership possibilities and the range of housing.
Well, and
So
the green space and the 0 lot lines, I mean, those are all things to put into consideration as well. People kind of like independence because we have our green space. And the ability to go outside and enjoy our properties.
Yeah.
I can see how you're putting this out here, as this is gonna be, how you said it, not a lot more, but a little bit more of what we already have. I don't know how much more this is gonna be. I don't know how much more this is gonna occupy our lands. I don't know how much green space we're gonna have left after all this is done. So it is a big concern for me.
I would say just around green space, the other thing that tends to control, it, at least in terms of how much open space and lot you have to have or can have, are landscaping requirements and lot coverage requirements. And we're not proposing significant changes to, for instance, the lot coverage requirements. So what that means is, yes, you could have more housing units, but they can't really cover much more of the lot than you cover now. So you still have some sideboards in place in terms of how much open space was within a lot you need to have. And I
Is
guess the
there-
last thing I would say is you're not requiring anybody to do this, you're just saying, here's some things you could do it.
What is the green space allowed now? Because I thought it had changed.
Currently, our lot coverage requirement is 40%. So I can't remember what the draft says, but it might be something like 45%.
45%. So it allows a little bit more of the coverage, but it's a pretty small increase compared to, and actually right now for townhomes, it's a higher allowance, 60%.
Thanks, Mayor. This is all based on what the market would build, so just because we put it in the code doesn't mean that these things will get built, right? So I think the goal here, and correct me if I'm wrong, the goal here is to provide as much flexibility, as much options as possible to let the home builders kind of make that decision of what makes sense in a specific space.
I mean, I would say that is one of the goals for sure, and as Fred said, what we're recommending, these are things that the city identified as policy goals in its housing production strategy. So we're kind of moving forward with policy choices the city's already identified as, you know, we want to support this thing. So, but yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not that the city's gonna make anybody do any of this, you know, it's sort of allowing the opportunities for it. On an individual lot, if that property owner or a homeowner decides they want to move over something. Yeah, thank you.
But I have a question for you. When I bought my house, my lot was identified to me in terms of acreage,
Yeah.
not square feet. Does it make sense to put the conversion in the code?
I mean, we could potentially do that. A lot of times you see lot sizes shown in minimum lot size of square feet. What?
That's the most common way to see it and kind of go around. It's almost every community I've worked in, unless it's a really low density zone where it's one house per 2 acres, 5 acres, something like that, but it's kind of a city. It's
I'm
almost.
terribly out of town, so I don't know if you guys are even. But that's about.
Yeah, yes, Google.
Yeah.
It'd be like,
I'd be
it'd be like
happy to-
1/48 of an acre.
I'd be
It'd be like 1/48 of an acre for
For square feet.
2,500 or 2,400 square feet.
Can I'd just like to make one point, so. We have had, I get lots of calls, right, and I'll get people calling me. And they're wanting to do something that makes complete sense on their property. But I get sort of stuck where it's like, well, it's not exactly allowed in right now, right? A good example is I got a call about a guy's got a duplex on his lot. His lot is fairly large, it might be 9,800 square feet. He's got a duplex on it, he's got a garage with an attic above the garage, I can see it. I can see how that would be an ADU up there, he wants to make it an ADU and I say, I'm sorry. You can't do an ADU with a duplex, right? Just one example. And so what we're trying to do with this code is get away from some of these sort of like weird like use distinctions that end up causing us to say no to housing. And get us to the point where we're looking more at like the number of units per lot size and say, hey, you have X amount of square feet on your lot. You could, yeah, absolutely, you could do a duplex with that ADU up there. So that's really what we're trying to do with this, is really try and get away from some of the weird kind of use divisions that we currently have.
So Fred, as a follow-up, obviously you're working with Matt and his team, would this anticipate most of the things that come across your desk where you guys say, I'm sorry, we have a definitional problem here?
Yes, I mean, that's what we're fundamentally trying to do. We're trying to get away from from some of those weird distinctions that we end up having to make.
That are even arbitrary ultimately.
Yeah,
They fundamentally are, yeah.
and we still might use some of those terms in this code, but we're trying to again provide a certain or more flexibility in kind of how those things can be situated on a lot. And I think, you know, you're at a size where you don't have to do these things, but you do have some city policies that says we like to do these things. And so we're trying to do, we don't have to follow certain state rules, but for instance, the city has a set of middle housing requirements. You don't have to follow those exactly, so it gives you a little more flexibility in terms of how you implement your code, and we're trying to kind of take advantage of that flexibility. And I would say do something that's kind of unique, you know, within the states.
Yeah, and I will just say, a lot of what we're basing this on is, again, precedent that we see in the city. So we have fourplexes and we have middle housing units that in almost every neighborhood in this city. Like, I could take anybody, you could drop it in any neighborhood, and I could point out the middle housing that we have in that neighborhood. I will say, we have it everywhere. Another thing that really is sort of like influencing this too is, and the planning commission did work on, remember we have a variance right now for one subdivision to allow people to go from 5,000 square foot lots to 4,500 square foot lots. That's one subdivision, even though we have numerous other subdivisions with the exact same lot size. And so rather than allowing a variance, which is a procedural process for folks to go through to come to planning commission to get a variance, why don't we just say, you know what? This applies not just to this neighborhood, you don't have to go through some sort of special approval process and make it available to much more people. So again, it's kind of looking at what we have and saying, hey, if we made basically a couple of pretty small tweaks, we're a whole lot more flexible with what folks can do with their property.
So it sounds to me like what we're really talking about is not so much new development as I have a really big lot. I don't, mine's only like 8,500 square feet, so none of this really applies, but someone has a really big lot and they would like to put a duplex on there for their 2 kids.
Yeah.
And so we're really, it sounds to me like trying to get to yes for folks
Yeah.
who want to further develop properties that they own.
Yeah, I would say, yes, we're absolutely trying to enable opportunities for folks. To do exactly that.
I appreciate having an option of housing, because I do think our demographics will change, and I think of as our population is aging, some people are wanting to downsize and stay in the community, but if they don't have a place to go, especially like a place to go with home ownership, or retaining that ownership part. And so I like having options where they can scale down to a smaller lot, easier to take care of, or even a, whether it's an ADU or a duplex or something where you can have multi-generational family living situations. So it's like,
Just changing how many units are on the lot, affect the development fees that are charged.
So development fees are based on how many you're actually trying to put on a lot, so it's not based on potentiality, it's based on what you're actually trying to do, if that makes sense.
So if I added 2 units, then they would be 2 units.
Right, exactly.
Fees
Right, so
for those units.
Yeah.
even if it's one building. it's-
Oh, but that's it begs a question though, if you have one building with 4 units, 4plex.
Yeah.
You pay the multifamily rate or the single family, it's a single building, like one of the examples.
Yeah. I wasn't anticipating like talking about how we're gonna process SDC fees, I would have to look into that, John.
Right now, I don't, yeah, that's a good question, and most places. Well, okay, a couple things, I guess most communities that I'm familiar with, if they have not recently updated their systems development charge methodologies, most of them don't distinguish between single tip sort of traditional or typical single family or single units, you know, on a detached lot versus. Middle housing duplexes, triplexes, they do distinguish between apartments or multifamily housing, and most of them. That they define that as 5 or more units within a single structure. And so I'm pretty sure. Don't totally quote me, that Independence has a lower SPC rate for those types of units. Because they're almost always smaller, they have less of an impact on your system. There are some cities though that do and have updated their systems development charges to sort of prorate them based on unit size and to charge per unit SPC that's lower for instance, middle housing, but it doesn't really often distinguish between, oh, this is a duplex and this is a single home. It's more, this house is between 1,800 and 2,400 square feet, this one's between 24 and 3,000. And those houses tend to have more bathrooms, more impact on water and sewer, and so they charge a lower or higher rate of those. But that's not something that's part of this effort, but it is something that a number of cities around the state have considered. We actually just worked with this, or are continuing to work with the city of Lake Oswego as part of their parks plan. They're adjusting their parks SPCs to do exactly that. But we're not quite ready. It's a good question.
Cool. Well, we wanted to give you folks sort of heads up that where we're thinking about going with this. Like I say, the planning commission is gonna look at it a whole lot more. We'll get it to a point where we're feeling comfortable with it, then it will come up to you folks. But we wanted to make sure there was no red flags with where we were thinking we're going with this and all that. That's what we were hoping to sort of talk about tonight. So I don't think we want to take up a whole bunch of your time just because we know that it's a very busy meeting.
I have one more, and I hope it's quick and easy. Because in part, we're talking about infill. So if I have a large lot with a house on it, I add a house, we're not having to build new streets, etc. Are the STCs calculated differently? For like an infill sort of property than they are for a new subdivision where we have to bring sewer in, build streets, all of that.
I think it depends on the use so it depends on what type of infill you're doing. So accessory dwelling units, yes, the SPCs are calculated a little bit different because we assume that you're gonna share the meter with the house. So that helps reduce the rate for the accessory dwelling unit. If it's its own standalone lot, we imagine that the SPCs are gonna be pretty much the same for that new lot as for other single family house in town. What you're avoiding costs on though are things like frontage improvements and all that sort of stuff. So
Because the STCs are also a part of the stress on the system.
Right, and yeah, and I understand that piece, that's.
Yeah, would potentially decrease sort of the cost per housing unit or home for things like sidewalks, or if you have to improve the street in front of the house, if you got less front of so this spends money on those kind of homes, so that's what affects it.
perfect,
All right.
awesome.
Well, thank y'all, appreciate it.
Thank you
I'll
for making
follow
the record.
those down, but I'll-
Oh, Myra, we can hear you. Right there.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's.
Oh, they didn't already.
planning commission or anything?
Yeah, go
ahead, when you still better.
You're welcome.
Give you a glass of wine.
Like, just to say that louder, you're welcome to stay.
I think they're.
I think so. You're smart, I said, Well, we have some lands. That he's.
You go back.
Yeah.
We have money.
All right.
Handing it over to their side.
First, thank you for having us here tonight. I want to thank my colleagues here with me today on the committee. I wanted to come tonight, and we all wanted to come tonight to present the recommendation of the ad hoc committee that you all named at the end of the year to look at the stabilization in the short term and long term of the general fund. I will stay on my notes tonight and I have used a lot of words today, and so I'm going to try to conserve and stay on my notes tonight. And make space for questions, of course, at the end. But I wanted just to thank everybody who participated, everybody we worked with. I want to thank city manager, thank our economic development and systems, other things, all the things. And of course, Amanda and her team for all of the work they did, helping us in a very short and tight time frame. So with that, to the notes. First, the goal of the committee was to evaluate short and long-term stabilization options for the city and provide a recommendation that addresses immediate needs while allowing time for longer-term financial strategies to mature. So first, briefly, the process and the scope of our work. The committee engaged in a focused 6-week review process beginning early December. The work was anchored in 3 structured, in-depth working sessions. Each meeting was organized around specific financial, policy, and operational questions. Meetings included staff presentations and detailed financial administrative information. The committee reviewed historic data, service impacts, and policy constraints. The members considered legal authority, administrative feasibility, and equity and impacts. Committee members reviewed materials outside of course the meetings. Deliberations were informed by informal conversations with their friends, neighbors, and other community members. The short-term stabilization options considered, the committee evaluated 2 primary short-term funding mechanisms. Options included a levy and a utility-based fee. Evaluation focused on near-term feasibility and service stability. The committee assessed the revenue reliability and the implementation timelines of these fees and of a levy potentially. Alignment with long-term economic and community goals were also considered. With regards to the levy consideration, the committee reviewed the general purpose and structure of local option levies. Levies were identified as a long-term, community-driven funding tool by the committee. The committee reviewed electoral history and voter approval considerations, impacts on tax compression, and the committee emphasized that any levy effort must be developed with the community. Conclusion that a levy is better suited for service enhancement than short-term stabilization needs. The committee considered a utility-based fee. The committee evaluated a utility-based fee as a near-term stabilization mechanism. Possible fee levels and revenue outcomes were reviewed. The committee examined fees used by comparable cities, both in proximity geographically and our peer-sized cities. The common fee types and ranges were reviewed. The tiered fee structures were evaluated. Specifically, an income-based tiering was reviewed and determined to be administratively infeasible. A service-based tiering by residential, commercial, and industrial class was analyzed as well. City utility customer base was reviewed, totaling approximately 4,000 accounts. Approximately 95% of those accounts are residential. Commercial and industrial accounts represent a very small percentage of our total customer base. Analysis showed that reducing residential fees would shift disproportionate costs to our local businesses and potential industrial firms.
For each dollar reduced for residential customers, commercial and industrial customers would see significantly higher increases. As a committee, we were concerned about the impacts on our small businesses. We are a small business community. We are recognized the difficult challenges of our small businesses, not just in this community, but others, and that this did not seem like the right answer for them. The committee also noted that increased fees on industrial users do conflict with broader economic development goals and long-term efforts by our economic development department to retain and attract industrial customers to this community. The conclusion that tiered fee structures are not equitable or supportive of business and retention and growth. Cost of service level and service impacts. The committee reviewed community services and parks fees relative to the I'm just going to say CSL. The committee reviewed financial analysis showing impacts of fees below CSL. Community Services Department have already experienced significant staffing reductions, and the community services programs have already been reduced to below core service levels. We had an opportunity to hear from our community services program directors and reminded about what CSL currently looks like. It was again a reminder about how much we have already cut. So we're not talking about retaining and adding back. It has been cut very, very much to the bones. Parks Department has experienced maintenance and service reductions. Deferred maintenance and reduced service levels are already occurring in parks. Additional cuts will require reductions in already bare bones services. The committee determined that further cuts are not feasible at this point. The conclusion that fees must be set at or above CSL is the only realistic approach. The committee also looked at long-term considerations. The short-term and the long-term considerations are a partnership. The committee reviewed ongoing economic development efforts. Staff shared information regarding work with CINCOR, strategic efforts to assess, attract, and retain industrial businesses, city efforts to address infrastructure, site readiness, wetlands, and excess issues were reviewed. The committee discussed the city's debt service retirement schedule. And between fiscal year 2029 and fiscal year 2033, debt retirement and repayment of interfund loans are projected. Debt retirement may strengthen the general fund over time. The committee discussed URA land sales and development opportunities. Some of these opportunities are already underway by staff as directed by the URA board. The committee expressed cautious optimism regarding these long-term revenue impacts. The committee acknowledged that there are many variables outside of their control with regards to these long-term impacts. There are of them, say, 1,000 ways to impact those. We can control about 4 of them. And as a city, economic development, infrastructure, debt retention, we can do everything right. And there are many economic policy factors that we have no control over. It's a bet. It's a bet we hope we win. And we are risking ourselves to win, but it's still a bet that we can't guarantee will pay off. More specifically, cannot guarantee it will pay off in a specific time frame. All of these efforts are 3 to 5 year, 3 to 6 year, multi-year efforts before the city has a glimmer of any additional revenue for the general fund. And specifically then, these long-term needs don't address the immediate need for stabilization. We did also discuss, in addition to economic long-term opportunities, community opportunities and long-term options. The committee discussed broader long-term funding options. The staff provided a thorough review of special district structures, pros and cons of special districts. The committee, as a committee, we acknowledge that special districts can provide long-term stability, but it is a long-term process. It is a long-term process. It's a long-term process that starts with community engagement. And there cannot be a time frame on that engagement. So we discussed the community engagement requirements for these long-term options. The committee is not recommending pursuit of either a levy or a special district at this time. The committee does support continued informal community-led conversations about the long-term financial efforts this community would like to see, whether that be a levy or whether that be pursuit of a special district. But those have to start with the community and listening to them about where they would like to see the city go in its long-term trajectory. And we would hope that the council engagement with emerging community perspective is what we hope for. As community members continue to have these conversations, there's an opportunity to report back and report out what those conversations are telling us about what the community wants and expects in the long term for city services. And as we talk specifically, whether it be about a levy or a special district, understand what in a more engaged opportunity, understand what that means for costs of property taxes, what it means for services in the city in the long term. And so hopefully we can continue to ground those conversations at a community level and with the community and not. Therefore, what is our recommendation? Our recommendation is to implement a community services and park fee beginning in fiscal year 2026-2027. The fee would be set no lower than the current service level. What does that mean? The total all-in fee would be approximately $29.65 a month on utility bills. That does include the existing $10 public safety fee. The community services portion of the fee would be approximately $11.50. The parks portion of the fee would be approximately $8.15. The community did discuss a modest additional amount for basic library materials. Core library collections were identified as a basic service. The committee noted that core services should not rely on charitable being supplemented by the Friends of the Library. In addition to recommending the fee, we have 3 structural recommendations regarding the fee. First, the fee should be indexed. Recommend annual indexing using the Consumer Price Index for the West region. That indexing aligns with the city's public safety fee approach. Second, transparency. The fee purpose and allocation should be clearly shown on utility bills. The community should be able to trace the fee revenues to budget documents and align to see how revenue is coming in, how revenue is being spent. I want to acknowledge that there are going to be limitations of the actual system and how many letters and characters we can put on a word on the actual utility bill. And so I think in our discussion, we had a very robust discussion about the importance of transparency. And I think city staff understood the significance of making sure that community members recognized what the fee was and what it was for within the limits, of course, of the system. The third branch of that is an assessment. The council should conduct a biannual assessment of the fee in the general fund. Assessment may include revenue stability and expenditure trends. Fund balance adequacy and long-term fiscal stability should be reviewed. The assessment should consider impacts of debt retirement, and strengthening of the general fund may occur over time. Should also consider successful economic development to support future fee reductions. So finally tonight, the ask from the committee respectfully asks the council to consider the recommendation in its entirety. The recommendation provides near-term stability for essential services. The approach creates time and space for long-term community-driven decisions. The committee requests that the fee either, and I'm going to add a little bit to my committee members here, in the week between our last meeting and tonight, in conversations with staff, a recommendation developed that potentially sending this fee first to the budget committee to consider as part of the budget process. This will allow for, in addition to any public testimony and opportunity at a council meeting, if it went right to council, this will allow for additional opportunity for both consideration of the fee in the context of the budget by the budget committee, and also allow for public participation and testimony of the fee in the context of the budget being considered. In discussing it with the city manager and staff, the budget, as I understood it, would consider the base fee we're recommending as part of the budget building process, which would be the $29.65, would be built in as part of the budget consideration, but would not be the final decision. It would be considered. And so that would be the recommendation, is either to send this to the budget committee or you can of course recommend sending it to the city. So with that, thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions.
I just first want to say thank you very much to the committee. I know this was a big ask and there's a lot of kind of weight to it. I mean, it's a difficult decision and I think we all wish we were in a different spot financially, but I appreciate you tackling this problem and asking thoughtful questions, just try to come up with the best solution possible. So I appreciate that. I know it was a tight time frame and we put a lot of time and effort into it and I really appreciate that.
What was the, and this is probably hard to answer, so I acknowledge that. What was the levy fee that the average family would have paid if we would have passed the levy? It was based on property taxes, so I think that's difficult to answer, is that correct?
It was an average of.
Yeah, do you remember if Robert had even our file?
I'm sorry.
It's a. Yeah, we get kind of back from that.
So it was proposed at $1.81 per thousand, of assessed value. So if we had a $200,000 assessed value house, 1 times 200, that'd be $362.
So $362 a year.
Or if you have your house,
$100,000.
yeah, for an assessed value of $200,000.
And so this would be $29.65. How did the committee think that they can sell this to our community when they did not pass the levy? How is this not bypassing what they've already said we don't want? We don't want to pay these fees. We don't want these fees to be paid. They voted on not passing the levy and we're going to essentially take the money anyway. How do you plan on selling this to the community to buy into this?
The fee doesn't undo or reverse any consequences or decisions of previous budget committees. Because the levy was going to restore full funding to the general fund. All of the actions that have been taken by the previous budget committee for selling the museum, selling parks, buying the museum and the library together, cutting all of the library circulation material budget. That's still there. So what we're doing is just putting something on life support, not solving the issue, right? Because all of this same problem is going to come back next year and the year after that, and year after that. We're going to be looking at additional potential cuts because this in no way solves the budget or the general fund.
Right, but based on the $200,000 house, we're asking people to pay $7 less than what they would have paid if the levy had passed. No, I can't imagine people in our community buying this. They're going to think that they've been ignored and that we're going to tax them anyway.
Some of those people probably will, sure, yeah, it's acknowledged, sure. There was a lot of people that voted for the levies, and there wasn't a very high voter turnout for the levy election anyway. So, and every community in our immediate vicinity has a fee like this.
I'd also say that there wasn't a levy on the public safety. So that if we did a levy on public safety, that very well might have gone down too.
Well, yeah,
It
people
might have-
are frustrated about that. They're frustrated about the public service fee, which we all voted in. And now we're going to triple that. And keep the public service fee. I just think this is a bad, is it part of it? Did I mishear that?
It's part of it.
Okay.
So the $29.65 includes the public safety.
Okay,
So it's really.
so it's just,
Nine,
It's 19.65.
so it is a bit. I still. think
it's a
important.
200% increase.
I just would suggest something, which is that absent a fee to keep our libraries and our parks at just the base level we're talking about, the alternative is gonna be closure.
And
As a-
that won't make us whole.
And that won't make, that doesn't solve, I mean,
We'll
but
be
as
cutting the
a,
police department the year at it.
and I would suggest that to your point about the economic conditions and families and pressure. what are our families gonna do? Are they gonna get in their car and drive to Salem, where it's gonna cost them more than $8.50 to fuel their car? To go to a park in Salem? To go to the Gilbert House, where they're going to pay $80? What recreational alternatives do they have than going to the library, where it's free? And I know it's not free, we're paid for it through our taxes, but they can't buy a book for $8.15 a month. So I understand, I have 3 small children. Every place I take them, we are past the free age, and so if we're talking about access, affordability for our community members, what we are now saying is please go someplace else and spend money that you don't have now at a greater rate than contribute $19.65. That is a tank of gas. So as an alternative, I would suggest that that is what's gonna happen. So if we're talking about economics, the economics of traveling out of this community to Corvallis, to Salem, even to Monmouth is far less economical. And if we can ask our community members to recognize that they can still go to the library, they can still go to the park. And I think it's also important to recognize the same long-term investments that we ask for, and that the same activities that we are relying on to generate revenue in this community are done through the parks. No parks means no Independence Days. No parks means no blow. So it's not just about that. They have and are tied together.
Well, one of the things that came up at a recent council meeting when the federal person came and gave an assessment of what Independence was doing. One of the things that was talked about a lot was marketing the community. And there was discussion about how important that is. And I find it difficult to promote and market a community that doesn't have a library.
Thanks, Mayor. First of all, thank you for your work. I know this wasn't easy. I think what I heard when knocking on doors around the levy was a concern and confusion around, has the city made all the hard choices before they've asked us to pay more? And we've continued to make hard choices since that levy. We've closed for the most part, closed the museum. We're buying the museum and the library. We're making other sacrifices. Second point is, we get what we pay for, and if we don't invest in our libraries and parks, that impacts property values. So homeowners are gonna feel it on the other end. It's something to think about. And then furthermore, if we have to start talking about police coverage in the future, we're gonna pay more in insurance premiums too. So we either pay, from my perspective, we pay upfront or we pay after the fact. But we're gonna all be paying. And from my perspective, I support the recommendation to bring this to the budget committee because I feel like it gives more opportunity for citizen feedback. Because I am very sensitive to this concept of us overruling without public process. No one, I think, wants that here in this room. But I think having a full discussion of what this looks like within the budget process makes a whole lot of sense. And I think we're a community that has always made an effort to provide opportunity for our people, and this I really think is the only way we could do that, because what is a community without funds?
So thank you. And I'm gonna echo Councilor Swartz, or he's echoing what was going on in my brain, one of the two. That yes, this does need to go through the budget committee. We need that opportunity for public input. So thank you for incorporating that into your whole thought process. That then gives the community the opportunity to come to us and say, nope, I don't wanna pay $19, close the library, shut down the parks, no more Independence Days. I'm fine living in Independence without all the things that make it the place to raise families. So, yeah, I would like to see it go through that very public process and invite folks to come and share their thoughts. And to bring other solutions if they have.
I wanna say that we didn't make this recommendation in a vacuum. We're all members of this community. We all have budgets. We all talk to our neighbors who have budgets, who have or are feeling the economic realities. We know what we are asking of our friends and neighbors, asking of ourselves in this conversation, and it's not an easy ask. But I also know that the alternative, and it's not us in any way, shape, or form making any kind of, I don't wanna use the word threat, it's a reality if we don't. And by reality, I mean, it's a reality that we will lose these two wonderful people back here and all the services they provide. And that's not at this point in time, and some sort of effort to convey a message to the community, other than this is where we're at. And we've looked at the numbers, we looked at numbers of a fee that was reduced. And all it's gonna buy us is more cuts. And we considered the report that the former finance manager provided with regards to strategies moving forward about keeping costs where, you know, at cost of 5% and budget is 5%, increase revenue, you keep it there, which would be great. But we already understand that it's quite likely that it'll be 7 to 9% growth in costs, so that's already a gap. So anything less than a CSL based 1965 is more cuts to services we don't have to cut. And I'm hoping, I know there is perception which becomes reality throughout the community that the city is not being truthful with where the budget is at. And I can just wholly want to say, these are new voices saying that it is not true. The budget is dire. And so there's not a hidden pot of money someplace. I hope new voices seeing that will help convey the message of old voices that people can't quite let go.
First of all, I wanna say, I appreciate the objective nature of this review. These institutions, and I'm gonna read a little bit from my notes, these institutions offer free access to education, exposure to new and compelling information, and opportunities for recreation to support healthy lifestyles. Without these institutions, as you said, Aaron, a resident would have to travel and likely pay more to get the same. I think some of the dissent from the levy was exactly as you stated, and I think maybe what Evan was getting at was, people don't understand the budget hole that we're in right now. And it's gonna get a lot worse before it even gets remotely better. The only way that we're gonna get out of that hole is to bring industry to our town, we know that. And, you know, even though some businesses will do this, others won't, but for the most part, many companies, and I'm sure you could testify to this, Sean, many companies look at the community carefully before they make the decision to move. They look at the caliber of the school district. They look at the availability of recreational opportunities for their employees, the availability of educational opportunities for their employees and their children and parents they may care for. If they don't find those amenities here, they're gonna move on to another community. So I think if we even consider the possibility of closing these institutions, we have pretty much taken ourselves off the map. Nobody's gonna come here, nobody's gonna care about this community. To speak to the levy vote, Nathan made a very good point. It was a low voter turnout that particular year. And I think part of the dissension of the voters who did vote was, again, not understanding the whole picture. And I think by bringing this into the budget committee, we're gonna give them that whole picture. And again, an opportunity to say what they wanna say. I feel very strongly about particularly seniors in our community who are probably finding themselves in a position where they can't afford a subscription to the paper that they always read. They can't afford the subscriptions to the magazines that they've read their entire life, and the library provides this for them, free. Patrick set me up yesterday with Canopy. You know, people are paying a lot of money for streaming services. Canopy is free. It's got tons of movies, child programming, all kinds of stuff on documentaries, the whole 9 yards. It's great. There are opportunities at the museum in particular. You know, Amy has made the museum a very welcoming place. I sat in on a session where she invited people, children with neurodiversity. And I could see the absolute relief on these parents' faces to know that their kids were welcome in that space. And the library is very much the same way. I've said this many times, I grew up in a military family, I lived on bases all over the world. The one place my parents felt very comfortable leaving my sisters and I was the library. And I think that's true of our library. I think people in this community think they can drop their kid off in the afternoon, the kid will be safe. The kid will have information at their fingertips, they'll have help from the various librarians. And the same thing with the museum, they could spend an afternoon there. You know, I think these institutions are a hallmark of successful communities. And I think I don't believe it's your job to sell this fee, by the way. I think it's our job to sell this fee. You know, it's the budget committee's job to make recommendations. Your job is to make a recommendation. You've done that. We're gonna take it to the budget committee. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna hopefully get some people in here to give us their 2 cents. It doesn't always happen, you know, but I think we have unfortunately, a decision to make here that is going to affect some people adversely. But I think if they can understand that this is for the betterment of our city for the long term, and that should we get industry here, which the staff is working very hard to do so, we could alleviate some of that burden on that. But anyways, kudos for what you did.
Just to respond briefly to say, we had that conversation when we talked with Sean about, does the community matter? And I mean that since does that impact his ability to bring industry here? And the conversation, you will absolutely correct me if I misconstrue your words, it does. They are looking around and they are looking at what a community has for their employees, for those employees' families. It is not as simple as what is the property tax base, what are the fees, what are the SDCs, you know, what kind of development dollars do I need to put in? It is, what am I asking people to come to and live in, hopefully. And they want,
It speaks to retention.
correct. And I think it's essentially less council.
Sorry.
No. I think to your point about selling the fee. It's not about, I stand by this recommendation. I stand up for this recommendation. I believe in this recommendation. I would love also to not have to make this recommendation to my friends and neighbors. I wish we were in a different position. I think everybody in this room and everybody in multiple cities and all over wish they were in a different economic position than they are. We are trying to buy ourselves time. This is life support, as we often talked in this group, as we are trying to put ourselves on life support to keep what we have. It is now, or we are going to reach a point where there won't be life support, will not save it. To hope that as debt retirement begins to occur in 2029, it is not that far away. It used to feel much further away than it actually is. As debt retirement begins to occur, as land sales will occur, as industry, and it will come. We are a wonderful community to live in. It will come, but it will take time, and we gotta buy ourselves that time. And that was why, and I will look to my colleagues who brought up the idea of an assessment, which I think is a valuable way for the council to look at and go, is this working? Can we reduce this? Can we make changes? Because that would be the hope. That 3 to 5 years from now, we don't have to have and survive on fees. But we've got to give ourselves space to have those conversations with our community in an honest manner that is not basically like, here's the levy, please take this. It is, what do you want? How can we get there together? How can we make this decision as a community? Is to give the economic development and businesses time to look around at all of our efforts in the water, in the wetlands, to be like, we're ready. We have checked the boxes we can control, but now we are ready. They wanna come.
Let me clarify, I don't think it's your job to sell them fee, but I do think it's your job to socialize.
100%. It would be foolhardy not to hear it say, I 100% stand by it, stand up for it, and stand for my colleagues who sit here with me and ask you to do this.
I've worked in government a really long time. Those people who really like what government provides, they really hate paying. And to your point, I work serving people with disabilities. Some people think, oh, someone with disability in my family, why do I have to pay taxes for it? We had a family that was moving and they, well, why did you want to move here? Like, oh, I love the library, I love the parks, I love the schools, I love all these things, but I hate taxes. All the things you just mentioned are things you should actually pay for. You had to pay privately for all those things you could not afford. So I think people take it for granted that cities will provide these things. If you ask people for a levy for something, they're gonna say, no, I don't wanna pay for community services, you should take the money out of public safety. Do a levy for the public safety, like, I don't wanna pay for public safety, you should take money out of community services. And it's divisive, and we have a divided community, and I think we have to show that all of the city is important. All the services are important, and not get into some people in the community win, some people in the community lose. And I think in the end, they take it for granted that the city will provide these things, and they expect the government to figure it out. They don't think it's their responsibility to tell you how to fund everything. They expect that the government's gonna figure it out. That's what we're doing. We're figuring it out so that the city can be together, provide all the things that people actually expect.
I was just gonna say again, thank you guys for what you did. How much of the community was part of your process?
It was a work group. It's much like, our group is much like this work group is tonight. It's a work session. It was for this group to collect information from our expert staff and expert individuals and allow us to talk and to come up with a recommendation. Public was absolutely invited to attend and watch, but it's a work session. And I would suggest, there was a request to have public testimony, and it was a decision by, as the chair, recognizing what this group is as a work group, to know that the opportunity for public testimony will come when there's a fully formed recommendation, whether it be by city council or now hopefully through the budget committee and as well as city council. And I would also offer, an opportunity. I would engage with anybody in a conversation about this. But in the actual deliberation process as a work group, we worked collaboratively and sought outside information and information from the staff of the city.
Okay. And I was just gonna say that I echo everything everyone said here today about the library and the museum and what it provides. I also, on a personal level, when I pay my water bill, I like to pay the water bill and not 50 other things, and if I have absolutely no problem paying taxes for things that I want to keep in the community, but that kind of goes for the levy. But it really comes down to what the people of the city want, because that's just my opinion. And that really is kind of what the levy was about. The fact that levy did fail really makes me hesitant to go ahead with the fee after having that. I would much rather push a new levy and consider the new political environment that's coming up and hope that goes through. But that's just my personal opinion.
I just would like to echo what I think Member Nathan said, that the levy was to continue the museum in the building that it was in. It was to keep all the properties. It was to keep Fridays at the library. That's what failed. What we have now is the cutback. The museum is up for sale. The library Amy will be working on the library, helping there. The library has no budget for materials. Those of us on the Friends of the Library, you know, talk with Leanne and, you know, a year our liaison, you know those things, but. So this isn't saying, okay, you didn't get the levy, we're gonna give it to you in a fee anyway. This is just keeping what has already been cut to fall.
I have multiple questions, but the first one is, and I apologize, what does CSL stand for? Just because I want to make sure I have that right.
Current service level. Current service level.
Thank you. Sorry, let me write that down real quick because yeah, I don't want to put out misinformation or stuff too, so that's why I'm gonna ask a lot of questions to make sure that I have good understanding of what this is going on. People are already. And I love the library. Don't want to act like I don't love the library, and I think Amy's done amazing things to the museum. So, and I love our parks. I've worked for the last 20 years on making our parks healthy and safe and open and accessible to everybody. This isn't something I've just done recently. I love all those things. But I still have to, I mean, people are so frustrated and so sad right now that what's happening at the Polk County Fairgrounds. That's something we're gonna have to deal with. This is all coming at the same time. And as much as I'd love for this come just to the budget committee and have people come in and complain to you, I'm gonna have to now come to every single one of the budget committee meetings that we're gonna have public testimony on this, because I need to hear everything from every community member that comes forth. So I don't know if we can have combined meetings when we discuss this so that we can all hear what people say, but I don't think people should have to come in twice to speak to the budget committee and then city council.
We're all on the budget.
We can all come in. Okay, just make sure that this wasn't happening.
Two different, I mean, first. City council is on the budget committee.
Right.
And then the second phase is whatever the budget committee recommends will go to city council, which will give a second opportunity. So it's not, it's when I talk about two phases, that's the standard 2 phase of the budget process now.
I understand that now. Thank you. So the other thing we're gonna have to sell though, and talk about, and maybe you guys can explain this to me, is we never asked people to pay for the Civic Center debt. And we took that on. And we never asked people to vote on funding MyNet debt, and we took all that on. So I think people are gonna look at us and say, we took on all these extra projects that we didn't have to do. We're starting to pay for the Civic Center this year. We're having all these problems this year. What could we have done to not get to this point in this year? And I think those are valid questions that people are gonna bring forward. And I don't know how to answer those.
Can I pause this real quick right there, because I think it's important that we make sure we're putting accurate information out there in terms of the Civic Center debt. But I mean, I understand people's frustration with Civic Center at this point. That was 18 years ago. In different circumstances, different reality.
But we're just paying for it now. That's what I'm saying, and people didn't vote for it, regardless of what happened.
And that's, I guess, that's the statement that I'm fixated on, is we're just paying for it.
Well, I was just looking at Amanda. Amanda, have you had the time to dig into that? Because I seem to recall there was bonding that was done and the bonds have been paid for. Sean, additional information.
I mean, we've been paying for the Civic Center since the Civic Center was built.
Yes,
There's no new debt that has come online this last year or anything like that for the Civic Center.
And I think that's very important that people are, it's not like we're 15 years later, 18 years later, just now starting to pay that debt. We have been paying that debt.
Correct. That's part of the bonding. It's been around since.
Since it was built.
Yeah, I'll research that a little bit more too, because I believe former counselor Joe found that wasn't even in our budgets. So I'll research that, but that's my main point. Other than that was that we didn't allow people to vote for this. We didn't allow them to vote for the Civic Center. Monmouth allowed their new city hall to be voted on and paid for, and they decided it. We're making all these decisions for the people of Independence. So I just think, these are things that people are going to come and have questions about. We need to have very good answers for. As much as I love and I want to keep our services, they're going to be asking us these very legitimate questions.
So I agree with you with the fairgrounds. I think it's a huge problem. I also want to point out that the people of Polk County have rejected that bond like 5 times. So we want to make sure that we're holding the county projects to the same standard that we're going to hold the city projects. And so if the argument is the people have spoken and we can't consider, then we can't consider the fairgrounds. If the argument is we should evaluate projects as we hear from the people and they're reevaluated and bring it back to the people, I think that's what we're trying to do. I would argue, I heard a lot of concern about the museum, whether I think that was fair or not. We've addressed those concerns that the people had. And the parks, I think, if you go to any community, a park is a great equalizer. You see people across society, across demographics, across any kind of thing in a park, right? These are core essential services. We need to really give the people the opportunity to hear and to discuss and be part of the process, but ultimately we have to make a tough decision. That's why we're here, right? But I do want to point out one more thing, which is I think it's really important for leaders of our community to not be stuck in a deficit mindset and to really think about opportunities for our community. No one wants to live in a community that's stuck in a circular mindset that leads to more cutting and more sacrifice and more sacrifice. And people's decisions will reflect the leadership they see. So if we have aspirational leadership that talks about possibilities and opportunities, people will respond and react to that. When we focus on things that are long past have been decided that we can't undo even if we wanted to at this point, people respond to that leadership by saying, why are we investing more in the folks who are saying, we could have done this, we could have done that, without giving other possibilities and other opportunities or other ideas. So I really think it's really important for the budget committee, the council, leadership of this community to really talk about what is possible and what can be done responsibly, which is what I think we're doing. Thank you.
One of the things that I also wanted to address to Councilor Rover's question was he suggested going out from a levy, and we had a good discussion about short-term life support versus sustainability after we have saved the patient. How do we bring them back to full health? And the levy would do that. We also looked at several books put up by the American Library Association that talked about how you bring a levy to the community, how you tell them about that and the steps that you take, and it's very long term. That would be a couple of years out. In the meantime, if we shutter the library, lose our wonderful staff, then we're further in. Thank you.
I think we've done our job here. The committee has done their job and given us a recommendation. It's not our job right now to make a decision on this. We're not gonna do the budget committee. That's proper procedure for this. And I don't want to belabor this any longer. We've got proper stuff to talk about.
I guess I just do wanna, I don't think it's necessarily an accurate interpretation that if someone votes down a levy on something that they don't want to have a library, they don't want a museum, they don't want parks. But what they're asking is, they would prioritize things differently. They would have taken the money out of public works, they would have taken the money out of public safety, they would have done something different, but they would cut people's salaries, or they have ideas of what they would have done differently. They're not saying, I don't want these things. And I don't think they necessarily even believe that they're gonna go away until they go away.
Because that's what Councilor Schwartz was saying, it's an information thing, we really need to be able to sell that and to communicate exactly what we're looking at.
I do think it's important to keep in mind, I'm very sensitive to adding costs to people or passing costs on to our residents. I have also heard from quite a few constituents that are like, you want to absolutely save that library regardless of anything else that you do. So I think we also need to be, and hopefully those people show up at the committee meetings and and express that concern, maybe there's a way that we can be collecting some of that public input, so that we're hearing concerns and the positive, people correct.
And people don't like it, but cost of groceries are going up either.
Absolutely.
But you know, that's, the reality is when costs go up, we pay more.
Yep.
Government costs are going up, the portion of that means we pay.
So just to add to that, just because I think I represent, unfortunately, I represent the lower income population of Independence. And so I talk to people who are on my same scale. And the whole issue that started this was people couldn't afford this very high base water bill we have. Doesn't matter if you don't use a drop of water at your house, you pay this high water bill. And I know it sounds like, oh, you know, just kind of suck it up and pay for it, but some people just really don't have the money to suck it up and pay for it. And so I'm trying, I want to try to think about, and I know you have, so I'm not trying to say you haven't thought about this, but I'm trying to just think of this for the people who also just have nothing. They have nothing. And they come to this community and their property, they feel their property taxes are high. They don't feel their kids are getting a good education at the central school district. This is their reality. And so I need to try to figure out how do we save the library? How do we save the parks when people can't afford to pay their water bill?
Yeah, I agree,
So-
and we talked about that a lot. We'd love to have some mechanism to where the ability to pay was more reflected.
Right.
We entered,
And that's really hard.
we tried to develop a course of action that we could do. Unfortunately, it was just a limitation of the technological capacity, the tools available to look at, you know, a spectrum of like, well, you pay, you know, a little bit more because you make a little bit more, whatever that is, like, there's no mechanism available to do that kind of assessment. But we really, we drilled down as far to that as we possibly could.
And as Councilor Carter pointed out, we'll have an opportunity to talk about this more at the budget committee meetings, in more detail, so.
Just to finish to say, I don't think anybody doubts anybody's love for this community. I think, whether elected or volunteer, whether coming here as we all love this community. And we all want it to be its best, and we all want to make sure we are doing our level best to give everybody an opportunity to be successful and feel seen and have a place to go and have a safe place to go. And I think that even though, for better or worse, much of what we centered on tonight is a less than stellar conversation of excitement, I'm optimistic. I'm grounded in the optimism that we've identified a problem. We have not an ideal solution in a perfect world, but we have a solution that will keep a library open for more or less anybody to walk into at any time without paying a fee. We have parks that people can go to without paying a fee, paying an admission cost. And we will hopefully see these long-term economic solutions come to fruition. And we'll be able to change this trajectory we're on. But I think this puts us on the right trajectory. We can't undo what was done. A different time, a different era, a different council voted on those things. A different body elected that council to represent those issues, and they did. And you are here today as a council that represents our community in a democratically elected body. So do it differently. And so I just to say, I'm optimistic. I hope this puts us in a place that we can then have space for both the conversations with our community and the economic and other financial efforts being made, that they will come together. And so thank you, and we will continue to have this conversation in the budget committee.
Well, thank you again for the work that you did, and yes, we will continue it at the budget.
So what I'm hearing, just to clarify, is staff and I will bring you a budget that includes the fee so that the community can see it. The budget committee can talk about it and everyone can determine it, what we will do to the best of our ability. Amanda and I talked about it just a little bit, is if we can, we will bring you what it looks like without the fee. And with,
And Erin's on the budget committee, so she can speak to the mixed one.
Erin, are you the only person on?
No.
Oh, Nathan, yeah.
Yeah, so.
and
Hello.
So we already have a majority of people wanting this to be voting on it. I mean, that seems like.
I don't know, there's a whole bunch more on the budget committee on this.
No, but I mean, there's a
Well,
lot.
and I think supporting the idea and ultimately making decision are two fundamentally different things. And one can only be decided after we hear from people.
And I would say that we were asked to do a task. We volunteered to bring a recommendation. And whether I think a fee at 1965 is the right idea or not, and I do, so yes, if you want to assume my vote's gonna be a yes on this, feel free to do that. Because I want library services for my family. I want park services for my family and every other family in this community. So no, it is not conjecture to say I want the fee. But more specifically, I'm not gonna say anything about my colleagues here who were asked to do a task. They came together with the best of their ability and asked to come up with a recommendation. They stand by their work. That's what they're standing by. They're not saying yes or no to a vote. They are standing by their work and saying, this is what we came up with at your request. So while I will only speak for myself and say, yes, I proudly pay my taxes because I want services for my family. Do I think it's fun? No. Do I think my budget is affected by it as a family and do I make different decisions? Absolutely. Do I wish I had extra money to go extra places? Every family does. But I want a public safety body in this city to take care of my neighbors and my friends. I want to be able to take my kids to the park where I know they will be safe and have safe equipment and be able to play freely. I want to take them to the library where they can get books. That comes at a cost I happily will pay and make adjustments in my budget. So feel free.
I don't need to get hostile.
I'm not getting hostile, I'm just trying to
look
responding to
into
the question
things.
that you have repeatedly said about, we come to these decisions and I'm responding to that, in my opinion. It's not about being hostile, it's about being correct.
Sounds hostile. That's fine.
Give it a rest, Councilwoman.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
Because the rest of us would like to be able to move on. It's decided we're gonna talk about
It's
this at
passionate.
budget committee.
Yeah.
And we still
It is.
have business to connect.
It is.
I'm ready.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a 5-minute break, man.
Yeah.
Convene,
Okay, then I have to.
all right, thank you. So next up, we are going to hear from. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. All right, we are bringing back tonight for council review, the update to the changes to the fee schedule. It's been a while since we looked at this, so I reprinted and redistributed the original report to council that you saw back in October, just for your reference. Since that time, former finance director Rob Moody had filed, Director Rob, all of the feedback that he had received. Originally, Director Moody and one of our accountants, Chelsea Gardner, who is here with us tonight, had done a lot of work working with department heads, evaluating costs. It had been some time since we've updated many of these fees. A lot of them need to be evaluated based on staff time or current cost to the city so that we're properly our expenses when we provide these services to the community. So we have incorporated all of the requests that we were able to into this updated changes to the fee schedule document that you have in front of you. I do have responses and answers if you have any specific questions that you sent to Director Moody that we would like to address tonight. So let's just start going through this for the sake of time. We don't need to reread the document, reread the notes, but we can start reviewing, and as we have questions, I thought we could work through them as we go.
Okay.
So we tried to make this a little bit more readable. There were some confusing components to it, the last document that came before council. We've made sure to number pages. You look at page 2, there is table of contents. We have broken it out by page by department for ease of reading. We have numbered the pages. We have added a new column, so we have the fee description, everything in black, and you have a legend there on your cover page. Everything in black is the current fee amount that we charge. Everything in red is what was proposed at the October 28th meeting. And everything in green has been added since you've seen it last with incorporated changes. We tried to add some comments and notes for clarification as well.
You just want us to ask questions this week. Just read through this. I have a question on page 4.
Sure.
Under facilities rental.
What should we?
Do we want to go page by page?
Let's go page by page. Just
Okay, no
kind of.
I have a question there, if I may. So, I just wanna make sure, Finance Director, that you have all of the questions that we sent to
I do.
the city manager and, okay, perfect.
I do, I have those.
Cause I asked quite a few of them.
Yes.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
And if you have any specific, I do have yours, Counselor Source, in front of me. If you would like to discuss any of those, we can go.
Well, I'm happy to go through it all. I just wanna make sure that, I don't wanna put you on the spot and ask a question if you didn't have time to prepare.
Yes, I have that one.
Awesome, thank you.
And just to clarify, if the goal up front tonight, what does success look like walking up?
So I would like to see us come not to a decision, but to a consensus. If there are any changes, let's discuss and try to incorporate them in this document so that we have a fee schedule with clear direction that we can bring to council with the resolution to get approved at our next council meeting.
Yes. We want to be ambiguous.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So page 3, if anyone has.
So on page 3, administrative fees, and again, a lot of the administrative type fees that were broken out by department, we consolidated and moved them all under administration, just as a reminder for ease of reading, less confusion for anyone who's referencing the schedule, and just to align them so we're charging standardized for the same service.
So the business license was not in effect and now it is, but we're adding that completely, that, right?
It's in
It's
effect. We're proposing changing it,
Okay.
yes.
I guess just because it didn't, it doesn't under the original.
Right.
Or the current fee, there's nothing there. And I can't remember offhand what. I I can't remember what it was.
There was a fee originally.
At one point, but it was kind of a little bit.
There was not diligent.
Basically.
Nor a good process by which.
It was implemented right before COVID, and then COVID hit and it seemed. It's not the right idea that.
So the way this is laid out, so previously we had business registration. And so we're trying to consolidate, they actually have a separate business license for marijuana based businesses. That was passed separately and administered separately with different rates. We are looking to consolidate that all to not treat businesses differently.
I had a question,
Yes,
and my question is why?
one for ease of administration.
So does it truly save the city money to not administer an additional fee to an organization that's used to paying extra fees because of the product that they sell?
Well, we don't want to differentiate the way, in my mind, the way we are treating our businesses just based on the product they sell. There's
Well, the state law
consequences for that.
Right, the state law differentiates it because it's not allowed to be anywhere in our community. It has to be a certain distance from schools, it has to be a certain distance from other places. So we're already differentiating it in code because we're required to.
True.
And they're already used to paying the differential, so why? That was one of the questions is why?
For business registration purposes, there's no difference in administering the registration. It's the same work that we do for all businesses when we're registering them. It's the same application process, the same amount of staff time, the state maintenance of the databases, the invoicing, processing of their payments annually. There's no different work for a different type of business.
Okay.
There's no additional work for a marijuana facility.
Not in a business registration.
And what did we decide we were gonna do with in home businesses?
So that's part of our discussion tonight, and I do have some information if we want to jump right into the business registration.
I have a quick clarifying question. When we're talking about a business license versus a business registration,
We're trying to just streamline it and just have one. We've had two. We've had both previously.
I see we made the adjustment on the color copies under administration, but now there's a discrepancy between the black and white under administration, under the library and under the museum. The administration is 25 cents, museum is 25 cents, library is 10 cents.
I think the library fought for that.
Yeah, I can understand why, but shouldn't we have it all be the same? I mean, whether it's all 10 cents or 25 cents, I would probably vote for the 10 cents, but.
It is all the same, so this is where we were trying to make it a little bit like easier to read, which. It's really hard to present this and all that information in one way, but we're planning on moving that all to administration.
Okay.
So every department will use the same fee, so you'll see that up at. On the administration page on page 3, under hard copies, it's highlighted in the orange color. That is what we will charge everyone, if that makes sense.
Oh, gotcha, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
And you thought color copies should be $1?
They are $1 at the library.
At the library, they're currently $1. Okay. Hold on.
Alright, so we can move into that.
That's what, that's, I was actually looking, I was just looking at copycats to see how much their colored copies are. And they don't have online prices. So. It does.
And if they can do it cheaper than folks can go use our local businesses.
Alright, so there was a lot of discussion last time surrounding these business registrations and particularly the inclusion or exclusion of home-based businesses. And there was also talk about, well, if we do charge them a business registration fee, what service are we going to provide? So in general, we looked into it, found a little bit more information afterwards, and really for cities, business licenses, registrations, serve several functions. This is what we found. It's really the city's purpose is to monitor business activities operating within the city's jurisdiction. Regulating certain type of business activities to ensure public safety, code compliance, and to generate revenue. Now, I can tell you, I was looking into it a bit and discussing it with my staff, looking at the research and what we were proposing. And that $100 flat fee really does, I would say, just barely or maybe quite cover staff time. So for example, in my department, having one of my accountants, which is who would actually be administering the business licenses, their fully loaded rate, their hourly rate of pay, including benefits, is around $65 all in it. And we're talking about every year the time to, first of all, throughout the year, communicate with the businesses, maintain the database, update records as needed, to create the invoicing, to create the registrations, to send those out. There is time involved in that, in both the payment, the application for new businesses, and just the general processing.
Okay,
So,
one other benefit, part of the reason that the registration was created was. To create a database of emergency contact info for the business owners. As well as an understanding of if there's any hazardous materials that they keep within the building. So that way, if there's a break in the middle of the night, who you get in touch with, if there's a fire department knows that there's hazardous material in a certain place. That was really the other purpose behind the business registration there.
yeah, I believe that's what we discussed last time we met as well, was it's important for the city to know what businesses are operating in our territory, in our jurisdiction, what type of businesses are operating so that we can properly, oversee them.
But you just stated why we shouldn't have it. Because you've stated this fee doesn't cover the time it takes the city to register all these businesses and do all the things. So why go to that level?
If no, I think she said it was a close call.
Doesn't change my point. If this barely covers the rate and it's 65 an hour, you're saying is what you would cost, and it barely covers the rate, why take this on? I can't imagine how many small businesses we have would have to label hazardous materials they keep in their building. Maybe that happens, but if there's an emergency in our community, then the business can contact or read our social web posts and sites and contact the city. I think $100 fee per year per business, home-based business, is extreme. I think that's an extreme cost.
So the decision is made to include home-based businesses in that fee?
That is the intention, and we did bring some more information in that discussion. I know a lot of the concern was we don't want to penalize maybe grandma who makes pickles in her kitchen, or somebody who crafts occasionally and sells items at a farmer's market, things like that. But what we found when we were evaluating these businesses is these are not, what we're identifying and what we're proposing is not those type. These are businesses such as a general contractor who has a large business, but their home address is their registered business location. Now, in that example, they're not operating as a contractor in their home, but that is where it is headquartered. Now they're going to have materials delivered to their job site. They're going to work with their employees and have the vehicles drive to the job site, but the business is still registered and operating out of the city of Independence. Just because it's in the home doesn't mean it's not a full-scale business operation.
So what do you mean about the small pickle sales then? You're not gonna enforce that business license?
Well, there's not a true way to police everything everyone does in their home. And that's not our intention. If somebody, there are already exclusions in our code for things like garage sales for persons under the age of 18 who are maybe tutoring after school, those type of things. That's not the intent.
Yeah, but so let's just say that there's a nice lady who crochets and sells her stuff out of her home. She's gonna now, because her ethics tell her she has to tell the city she's selling her crocheted items out of her home, she's now gonna have to pay $100 fee. because her personal ethics tell her she has to comply, even though you're saying, oh, I'm not too worried about that person, but in order to comply with the law, that she has to pay.
Is their business registered with the state?
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Okay.
that's our intent, is to identify the proper businesses, and that's part of this discussion tonight. So we want to find a way to delineate just a small,
What happens to the crocheted lady who doesn't put in,
well,
who has
we
a
don't,
state license, but
we
doesn't?
don't police, we're not penalizing it. We don't go beat down doors and insist people pay this if they're not. So our intent is to capture as many as we can, but to try and find a way to delineate the proper businesses. So one recommendation is that it would be in line with businesses that are registered with the Secretary of State's office for the state of Oregon.
I know I used to get that list when I had my insurance agency, so that
Yes.
you could say, hey, I do commercial insurance, so.
So
yeah,
anyone who's
list is
large
readily
enough-
available.
Exactly, and anyone who's large enough to be conducting a business and has a business plan in place and they're operating, whether it's as a sole proprietor or partnership, or they're incorporated as an LLC, or, you know, whatever size of business, if they are large enough and functioning as a true business and registered with the Secretary of State's business registry, I feel that would be more appropriate to delineate those businesses and identify those as those who should register with the City of Independence, regardless of whether it's home-based, brick and mortar.
And hopefully, once that database is set up, the renewals are easier. Because that information would be in there, and so they just update information.
Yes.
But it's still $100 every year, even if
Yes.
it's easier. So
Yes, and this is consistent in line and actually less than what a lot of other cities charge.
Well,
The state charges a little.
Right,
Right,
but for home
The
based
city of
businesses-
Dallas charged me.
I think we just, last week, made it, well, we have to reconsider it, but we spent a lot of time last meeting talking about how we need to protect brick and mortar businesses from food trucks, which are an equivalent of a home-based business, because they're not paying rent, they're not.
They do, pay, but many of them do pay rent.
Well, what
And
I'm
they
saying,
don't
what I'm
have to.
saying is the food truck is not
Right.
paying rent, they're not paying property taxes,
Right.
they're not assuming all the costs of a brick and mortar. And we made a policy decision to protect some of the brick and mortar.
I think
If we're
property
doing a
taxes-
home-based business, we're charging the brick and mortars and not charging the home-based business, we're doing the same thing. So I just would like some consistency in the policy guidance, so.
And frankly, some of our businesses are making more than $1.
Exactly. So if we're gonna say, okay, you know, restaurants that are in brick and mortars, we are gonna protect you from little food trucks. Because we see that as a competitor that doesn't assume those costs. How can we not say that about home-based businesses who might compete with brick and mortars who don't have to assume the same costs as the brick and mortar, so. Not ideal, but we should be consistent in how we're giving policy direction to our staff.
I think being construction business operated in Independence has to pay brick and mortar type fees, even if they're located in their home. So I think you're comparing apples and oranges here when you're talking about home-based businesses.
I would agree though that we don't have the staff, I mean, to break it down by industry code of like, okay, you're textile versus your construction versus your home baker versus that, I mean, we don't.
We don't have the staff
No.
that administer that type of.
That would be,
Got that too.
and I think, that's. So I appreciate that we do need to. Sell sort of a one size fits all in this case.
It's interesting though, because if I sell something out of my home, I'm sure I'm gonna have an ethics charge on me in the moment if I don't have this business license. Guaranteed.
Well, if you're registered with the state of Oregon, that would be out. If someone chose to pursue that.
So that's the intent, and along with this, with the updated fee schedule, we come back to council with a resolution, we're also going to have to update the municipal code to reflect in the appropriate places. So currently, our code is in front of me. So currently, our code defines businesses as all kinds of vocations, occupations, professions, enterprises, establishments, and all kinds of activities and matters, together with all device, machines, vehicles, appurtenances used therein, and any of which are conducted for private profit or benefit, either directly or indirectly on any premise in the city. It goes on to define the city, the council, and then the registration required and the exceptions. So for the current requirement, it lists, for the purposes of this section, any person shall be deemed to be operating or carrying on a business in the city when undertaking one of the following acts: selling any goods or services, soliciting business or offering goods or services for sale, hire, trade, or barter, acquiring or using any vehicle or any premise for business purposes. Now it goes on to say that classes of business are not required to register under this section. So that's where we create those exceptions. So for example, if you chose to sell something out of your home, that would not qualify.
Well, what would be the definition? So how, like, is it a cap? Is it $1,000? You have to sell more than $1,000 or 10,000? Is there something we could put on it like that?
So that's what we're trying to identify. And again, revenue isn't a great way. We can't enforce demanding to see everything's books or tax returns every year. There's no way for us to oversee that. So there is currently an exclusion for nonprofit, charitable, religious, educational organizations. What we're trying to clarify right now is the home occupations. So our current code refers to the Independence Development Code, subchapter 72. And the home occupations, the purpose of that, it really gets into the zoning and what is taking place in residential zones. So they're concerned with making sure everybody's up to code, that there's not nuisance, there's not vehicle traffic, things like that going on. So we intend to reflect the proper fee in our fee schedule and then amend the code to identify a way, and staff suggestion is to align with businesses that are registered with the Secretary of State's office, because that's something that we can easily find, identify, and align with.
So I just want to throw an anecdote out just to muddy the waters a little bit. So just take, for instance, my personal situation. I'm a real estate agent. Okay. A typical real estate agent might work for a global banker over in Salem, and there's that brick and mortar, right? Most agents, or at least the company I work for is a global company called BXP. There is no brick and mortar anywhere. Every agent is a free agent. They work out of their home. Some people choose to get an LLC or an S corp like I have. Some people don't. They just file their taxes as a regular person. They're doing sales. They're taking phone calls on their personal phone, working out of the house, at a business. I don't know. My wife and I have an S corp. We have an office downtown. But that's like, it's, so there's that whole gamut.
Yeah, there is, and there in every industry, there's an entire array of scenarios. So it's very difficult to just put it in one box and define.
What's tricky then, because we also, we have to vote on this fee schedule and then hope that we agree with what you put forth in the policy. So
operations.
With
the
I think tying it to the Secretary of State's, I mean, we've gone around this, even like through the work we do at New Commons, and the idea of like, how do you find people who are starting businesses? And frankly, it's very difficult. Some people start a business and 6 months later it's gone. Some people have had businesses that they're operating. And it's not that they're not trying to be compliant, but maybe they don't know.
Yeah.
The Secretary of State usually takes it very like, hey, we want to educate people when they come across somebody in that case, or we want to educate you on how to be compliant. I think we could probably take a very similar tactic on that, especially like the hobby business, like the people that are selling them for Saturday market, that sort of thing. So I think for the basis of this, tying it to the Secretary of State database gives us something concrete and tangible to.
Well, and you just say that you're not eligible for any incentives that the city provides unless you do, which is what the Secretary of State does.
Yes, exactly.
We can't give you any kind of rebates or programming if you're not registered.
Right, you're not gonna qualify for a grant or whatever.
Exactly, and so from time to time, we do have grants, and you would be eligible if you don't.
That came up during COVID, they could get COVID money if they got registered.
Exactly.
We still on page three.
So are we in agreement that we can type to the secretary saying that feel really comfortable?
Can I say something else on page 3?
Oh, absolutely.
Please tell me about amusement devices, because I read amusement devices as lottery machines.
And I think that was one of
Are
your
we
questions.
talking about Ferris wheels?
So, like that.
Cell phone?
Informational?
Speakers and lighting, something like that for the stage.
Because
So-
if it's lottery machines, we should definitely charge fees for that.
So the information I have, I see that's one of the questions that you had the former director meeting. And he provided all the information here and he got the answers ready. So in this particular case, that is referring to the business license fee for amusement devices, not the devices themselves. Currently, lottery machines are not under the purview of the city.
That's what's going on. That's why I was super
So.
confused.
Yeah.
So in the past, at some time, probably long ago, the city charged to have an amusement device in the community and you had to get a license for that device.
At some point.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
We also charge for dance floors.
Yes.
Well, and that's, I mean, there were dance clubs when I was a college student in Independence, so that was not long ago.
Longer than you cared to.
Yeah, all I'm saying. And they were closed after 2, so, or after 1, so they had to pay a surcharge.
I have a question on page 4.
Okay, let's go to page 4.
So page 4 says there's a suggested rental fee per hour. It seems like that would be, I'm sorry, I'm on J facility rentals in orange, part A, which is under part C.
All the way down at the bottom there,
Yeah,
the
in green.
facility rental.
So it was suggested that we have a rental fee per hour instead of the half day and full day rental fee. Does the cleaning fee charge $50 whether you rent it for an hour or a half a day or a full day?
Well, it looks like that's a refundable deposit.
Yeah, so it looks like that's just a deposit we're going to hold is the intention there.
Yeah.
And then it'll be refunded as long as the room is left in decent condition.
I think the rates are quite reasonable. I mean,
Almost give them one page.
And is that facility specifically for this building, or are there other places that the city owns that we,
library.
the library?
Library,
Those are all-
the library,
Yeah.
Or event center.
So this,
yeah.
this
you have to
facility,
leave
the
the
library.
You have to pay for it, it's not food, you don't.
Cause there's that room
That's
that
the
like
center.
kind of dance.
Huh?
There's that room in Independence, but when you open the door, there's a room on the side that, right, that community rents, is that?
It's free if you don't have food, if you're
Okay,
going to the
thank
village in there, you have to pay for it and cleaning fee.
Okay. So this would then say we're charging, or is this just for city owned?
So what you're looking at here with these, just to clarify, in the red, orange, what is the orange red color is what we proposed to provide to council in October. And the green is the feedback we received from Councilor Thorpe.
So library team is covered under the one.
Okay. Thank
So we need to decide whether we want to incorporate that.
Are you gonna combine all these rentals like you said, we're doing with other things like the copying fees? So the
Yes.
library would be included in this fee charge as
We'll
well.
start charging.
Yeah, so it's a consistent charge to rent facilities.
Okay.
So we need to decide if we're going to keep the half day, full day and a cleaning fee, or if we want, or we can incorporate a per hour charge in there as well.
Well, it's cheaper to do, I mean, depending on what you define a half day is, it's cheaper to do 4 hours at $40 than the half a day, which would be $50.
I would probably say like it's a minimum half day.
Yeah, that's what the library and the museum, so
Charge.
it's in excess of 4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the hourly fee would cause too much work for people.
I do too. So it may be administratively.
Right, if somebody only needs it for an hour, they're gonna charge 4 hours.
And
But
I'd almost be in favor of charging a flat
Still the commission.
fee for,
Yeah, it's-
even if it's like a $25 flat fee.
You're gonna get that.
Because there's,
we need to
the
set.
reality of it is you have a group that's coming in, they're gonna be using the restrooms and. I mean, they're just gonna be using things, and so it seems
You're gonna have to.
that that's just part of the,
Part of the cost, there is a
Yeah.
certain amount of work on staff's part
that's right.
to prepare these.
People are gonna
routes.
forget white tables down or.
Yeah.
I'd recommend just a flat cleaning fee and then. I mean, I think we're being very lenient on our rental fees, to be honest, and I know we don't wanna dissuade groups from being able to have a place to meet, so. And then is it the same, are we saying that people can come in after hours to run things, or we're basically saying these are only during business hours?
I seem to remember, I've been to meetings at the defense library where the library was closed, but we could still access the community room.
From staff.
That someone from the staff came and let us in. And then they locked up after we left, but we were able to do.
We might have had more staff than.
Well, for sure, but we also didn't pay, so now we're charging, right?
But I mean, I think if we're doing it, let's say somebody comes in for an evening meeting and we say it's gonna be a minimum of 4 hours, so you're $50 to come in. For a meeting from 6 to 7, there's still staff time and that doesn't cover. So I think
It doesn't cover.
there would be
There's-
an
it's
after hours fee as well.
Yeah.
Like an after hours surcharge. To cover that staff time. Or just say, hey, it's where we're at right now, we just don't have the
Yeah.
capacity to bring somebody in after hours, and so. It's during business hours and.
The library board and the friends of the library all meet after work hours in the library. Meeting room, Patrick and Leanne are in either both or one of those meetings.
But that's, if they have,
That's part of
those
Those are city.
employees that are less than that.
So I'm not friends, not friends of, yeah.
If a group wants to rent it.
They'd be renting it
you can't
now,
expect
right?
the staff to
Right.
stick around.
Yeah.
We don't wanna differentiate.
From a liability standpoint. It'd be difficult to.
This one's a,
We have to be careful about.
I don't know what the percentage of times it's used later in the evening without staff involved with. I know there used to be a airport meeting in there in the evenings.
I think this one's really challenging because we don't have meeting spaces. That are accessible. And so this is I think a really important service for the community, but where we're at financially, I mean. So maybe we think about this a little bit more, this small.
Because the Salem Library offers their conference space during library hours.
I just feel we're getting into the operations stuff. I mean, it's really, I say let them just take care of those what ifs, so.
Fair enough.
Well, if I may, you asked us to bring back revenue opportunities.
I don't think we were really helpful.
Okay, so we're looking at
Charging
first.
This is a revenue.
I mean,
A revenue opportunity. then
Well, if that's our goal, we need to get rid of the home-based businesses and we need to get rid of this, because this. Does offer a community service and we're break even on our home-based small businesses.
If it's a revenue, actually, council, we can increase it.
Yeah.
How?
Easy, we charge $150.
Oh, you mean for the rentals?
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
If we're looking for revenue, we need.
We don't have to charge
Not
$50.
increase it.
We asked them to come up with revenue ideas.
Yeah.
No,
And they are here.
I understand that. I'm not arguing with you. I agree with what you just said. If we're trying to increase it, it makes sense to increase it on this if it's paying for it. I just feel like what other counselors are saying, there are some community-based organizations. Whatever, okay, never mind.
I'm not arguing, I'm just saying that I'm going back to what Councilor Source said. We need a consistent policy direction.
Yeah.
Because you told us to come back with revenue opportunities and now you're telling my staff, oh, wait a minute, no, we don't want to charge anybody. We want to get it with free. So we need the consistent policy direction from the council. So I'm trying to gently, and I just didn't do it very well there. gently remind you that staff is trying to do what you asked. And you're changing the shift, which is your prerogative, but just be aware that that's what you're doing, and we will shift with you.
Did we ask this, or did, I
Yes,
can't remember the
yes.
gentleman who was here before came forward and said he wanted to simplify this for us and we modified it.
We asked for.
Revenue
Yeah,
opportunity.
we asked for revenue
Little things like this.
opportunities, and I think, yeah, the rentals is a good opportunity, but.
Or to make sure, I think we did get drug, we wanna make sure that we're covering our costs, it's staff
Right.
is covered, and so. That's my, I think it's a very different thing, if we're saying, during library hours when staff is there and if we want to come in and they want to have a meeting, fantastic, I think that's an easier ask because we already have somebody there to let them in and lock up after them, but there's still, frankly, they're gonna, if they bring in pizza, there's gonna be greasy spots in the, someone's gotta cook. So I just wanna make sure that we're accounting for even a flat basic cleaning fee, and then if it's after hours, frankly, I think we really need to consider what that looks like, because staff is gonna have to go down there, and now if the staff is present. Because it's like a library board meeting. Well, that's one of the perks of having a community board.
Well, I mean, we charge to actually reserve an area in our parks.
Yeah. So there's trash to be taken out, I mean, so there's costs associated with it, but I think that's exactly what we asked. And have been, and I think the community is asking us, so. You know, make sure city's not giving away this for free, so it's the tricky thing, I just.
And I think the goal, we were also trying to identify services that we're already providing, things that we're already doing, and maybe we haven't been recuperating those costs in the past, and we are trying to do that here. To identify those, to come up with reasonable fees.
Well, then I think we should get rid of the hourly fee because it takes too much time to prep the space for an hour rental. And I'm not opposed to increasing the half and full day fees, and a cleaning fee of only $25 seems very, very small. And I wouldn't recommend a separate fee for nonprofits, because we still have to clean the area regardless of who uses it.
Do we want to see a $50 cleaning fee associated with the attractable? Or do we want to see perhaps we can kind of combine do $50, $25 refundable if they clean up after themselves and there's minimal staff time involved? But if they don't clean up, then we keep the full 50.
I think we have to assume worst case scenario in almost every situation and then just have it be our thing, because if I rent an Airbnb, I have to pay the cleaning fee, even though I know I'm leaving it spotless. I mean, they obviously have to come in and do some changes to it, but there should be a fee for using it that is going to cover maybe not the worst case scenario, but the average worst case scenarios.
I think having.
I'm just gonna say, I'm a fan of including it in the deposit. I just say you have a fee for use of the space, here's your deposit, if I have to go in and clean up after you, I'm gonna take that out of the deposit.
But then that's more work for you guys to determine how much time we spent on that project instead of just a flat cleaning fee. Whatever we decide, it's just a flat cleaning fee.
I know we asked for this. I don't always think we're right when we ask for things, but I agree with Mayor Kate and Council Boisvert. You should make a decision about what it costs you to charge that.
I think having a flat $25 non-refundable and still having a checklist, like here's the facility rental agreement, you have to read them. Just push them, people wipe down, whatever it is, and hope that we have good citizens, and they do that, and. But I was getting into the whole refundable, non-refundable and all that kind of stuff.
Maybe overly complicated.
Yeah.
Yes, and I imagine the whole refund part is kind of a pain. I know when we rent the park, then there's a deposit and then we have to wait on the refund, or maybe remind somebody that we have that coming the next time we rent it.
Yes, and deposit is much more labor intensive, collecting it up front, afterwards refunding like that.
Right,
That would be
it's
a
the
lot.
flat fee. It is what it is.
That sounds great.
And if you want to give us a representative, we go through the case and as long as these numbers cover our costs, we can do that and bring it back to you with that direction.
Well, in the museum, she's got a bunch of different costs for rentals on there. Maybe because she doesn't have as much as many options to rent space wise. And she's got one small space there. And maybe that's where those costs come from. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we charge the same thing for that big large room downstairs and the same price for the museum's little conference room, but.
Like the library conference room and the museum conference room.
Well, no, the library is much bigger, but
Yeah.
but obviously much smaller than anything here, except maybe Heritage Room, but. I just wanna see consistency, yes, or if that makes sense, but.
Yes, and so yeah, for both the library, the museum, that's why we do have listed, we removed those. And just consolidated them all under the administration section.
Yeah, both museum and the library have like off hours fees associated with their stuff too, but I don't know that costs labor, that meets the labor cost to bring somebody back in for Dallas or someplace.
Yeah.
Closer up.
Right.
And then things like, well, it looks like it was removed, but then things like providing coffee and stuff like that.
We don't do it.
Bring that.
No.
Quick question, and before I see City Manager West had exploded. This is just a question. So at the university, public safety obviously has access to all of the buildings at the university. And oftentimes in after hours things, they're the ones that walk up. And I'm not suggesting that our officers don't have better things to do. But is it possible, depending on circumstances, if scheduled ahead of time, that the patrol officer can stop by, lock something up?
I'll make you a deal, counselor. If you will schedule with the criminals. You should not come in front of us.
They can obviously respond.
Yeah.
Okay, this is why I said, please know, this is just a question.
And I hope you got my favorite.
Yeah, no, but it's like, I'm trying to think outside the box,
I
right?
also said, as soon as she explodes, I'll be
Yeah.
Covered in goop.
yeah.
Good suggestion, and if you actually haven't done security in my youth at college. They are on campus and that is a part of what they do. Unfortunately, you know, officers, they respond to things at times that are
Not scheduled.
yeah.
We'll let them know if they're next step.
I'm just trying to think about
Keep
you.
your cell phone handy.
Hey, yeah, if you trust us, I'm always happy to respond.
I mean, I guess I'm looking at this two different ways also. The city can either decide, okay, we're just trying to recoup costs, we don't really have that many people that are renting these spaces. Versus, hey, we're gonna advertise it widely to the community that they can rent these spaces and try to make money. Because those are like two different things.
Sure.
And so then the library better get ready for a lot of frosting and birthday cakes at the library space, because I could see people would be like. Our birthday parties, we want to have a birthday party and we're gonna have it at the library. And frankly, based on the number of calls I get for people wanting to do birthday parties at my space, which I say no, because I'm kind of frosty. It could be a way to make money for the city, but that's staff time, so that's where,
That's where we have to find that balance.
yes, exactly. And the operations and how much staff is one that takes to bring that on, but if the library staff is like, well, actually, we have this great idea for a birthday party package, and they do an activity,
I think it's,
then there's something there for them.
We did those at the wine and so on.
It's gonna be a lot of fun, but
Patrick,
Patrick Kapuni, I don't.
I have a question on page 8, can we hop or?
we still need to go through five, six,
Yeah,
oh,
they were all good.
One more item I wanted to point out really quickly on page 4, just to bring to your attention because we haven't previously. We did add a $10 fee for notarization. Previously, we've been providing this to the community, but we have been charging. I think this is something that's a common misunderstanding among cities. Most all of our staff who are notaries file a fee waiver with the Secretary of State's office to prevent any ethics issues profiting off of something you do in the course of your work. It's not required, it's just very common practice, and I know everyone in my department has that on file, including myself. However, that does not remove the city's ability to charge a fee for providing that service to the community. So I did get clarification in writing just to back us up with the Secretary of State Notary Division. The city can charge that $10 fee. It is capped statutorily at $10. But we can charge the community at the counter for the notarization. So we are going to begin collecting. Because we currently doing that free of charge, and we do want to cover our staff time. I better come in.
Yeah.
A little bit, and some more.
Everyone must be wondering.
Oh, yes. You're back.
How much do you charge?
I don't. I never have.
All right, we digress.
Okay, so page 5, library, any questions? There was just one change, it looks like.
It seemed like that fee proposed there by Councilor Brewer would, seems like that would cover the cost better. So.
All right, then page 6 with the museum.
Quick question, Counselor Carr, is that like for your original card or is that for a replacement?
That's to get
To get,
a key card, yeah.
okay, and the key card is different from
Yes,
the library?
yes, it goes on your, I think it goes on your keychain.
Yes, okay, so,
The same purpose, you can check out a book with it.
right.
Yeah.
I count. But is the regular card, is that still free of charge?
Originally, yes,
Okay,
and then, there's replacement.
okay,
costs.
that was just the clarity I was
Yeah.
looking for.
All right, so page 6 for the museum, again, there's just. It's like one note, development should be fee. Yeah, so that's one, it looks like, what was proposed was for display rentals, a 90-day rental fee and a refundable deposit. Councilor Ford, your suggestion was to add development shipping fees, but we would need some discussion and direction on that, what you had in mind.
Well, I think the shipping fees is probably buried in the whole exhibit too, so we put a number there, but actually we have to let people know that there will be a shipping cost. Okay with it, yeah.
So if somebody wants to be shipped, yeah, it's say they pay for. This doesn't include shipping.
Yeah, whatever the USPS rate is or something like that, yeah.
So we can list that as actual cost, and then we would just have to.
Right.
Well, should we put, if we're gonna do that, should we put shipping and insurance?
And perhaps that would be at their discretion.
Discretion, perhaps. At the museum's discretion or? at
No,
the-
they'd rather drive to the museum from Bend and pick it up than have it shipped to Bend. I mean, that's an opportunity that they could have, but they want it shipped to them, they've got to pay for that shipping.
And insurance.
Insurance,
And insurance.
right.
I'll make that note, we'll list insurance as well.
Yeah,
Actually,
actual cost of shipping and insurance and purchasers discretion.
Insurance needs to be an absolute, they've got to insure it.
Right, so they need to cover the cost.
So if it's lost,
If it's lost or damaged.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll provide a waiver, right, their insurance somehow. You can ask them to either.
To provide a rider.
Riders.
Yeah, we've done that here when we brought stuff in.
Yeah, just whatever insurance they need to get that covered, just so that the museum is protected. It's just fine. I'm ready for page 8 now. Ruth. So page 8, I just have a question. I like that the fees were lowered to be consistent with what the county charges, but I have a dog and I did not realize the county charged anything. So is this what the county charges for people who live outside of the city, or is this?
Yes.
Okay, that's what that means, okay.
Yeah, it's not both, it's if you're not within city
Okay,
limits.
cause I was
the
like,
charge-
I haven't been paying both. And. Why remove the late fee?
So we spoke with the police department who work with these all the time. Really the goal is to get people in compliance. We want to encourage not detour licensing of their animals. And when they're already late, if we're gonna charge additional fees, it kind of deters them from coming forward and getting that animal licensed. They felt it would actually be counterproductive. But when I spoke with staff at PD, they said she's charged one in the last year or more. It doesn't come up very often.
And the impound fee for the dogs, I'm of course assuming that my dog got picked up, I would be glad to pay this fee to get my dog back. So I'm fine with that, but is this enough to cover the costs? Did the police department say this is enough to cover the costs?
This is all based on input from the police department. They felt it was fair.
Okay.
There is cost involved. We do have our community services officer has to go out, let the dogs out, run them, feed, water, that type of thing. But
this seems like very little.
It is very little, but it's hit or miss. You know, we're not constantly boarding dogs, caring for them.
Their lunch not show up on social media.
Yeah.
It's cheaper than boarding your dog.
Ankeny Hills, $99 a night, but they do
Yeah.
pet massages and bedtime stories.
Time story.
I look at it,
They have a pond and everything.
Get the police to take pictures of the dogs and sell a calendar.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a couple questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Did I just dream or did we have a discussion about passport photos? When we had this in front of us, or did I just like have a dream about that or something? I have recollection of the idea coming up for the police department to provide passport.
Our
Photos.
police provides it.
Well,
And yeah,
correct, but I've heard lots and lots of complaints about that process.
I thought it was really easy.
And it could be.
Yeah.
Oh, and high school pharmacy, okay, well, maybe we don't wanna compete, but I swear we had a conversation.
I've done a little bit of research. There was a library. That was processing passports as a revenue.
Maybe that was a conversation.
Cause I remember that.
But I think I did some more digging into it. It's something that really has to be weighed against that because there's a fee that's charged that it goes to federal government.
The federal government.
But I think it's capped at like, you can really only charge $35 for the application fee, but that would say local plus a photo. So they maybe you'd be getting like $40 per passport, which is fine, but I think you'd have to calculate, okay, like how many passports did you do in a week for a month?
Every time we go to that post office, there's a line out the door for people.
I don't know, I'm gonna say, when I was a day.
Make an appointment.
They did like 10 a day for 10 passports a day. So I think it's one of those things that you have to weigh, because then you also need to put.
Yeah. And if they're doing 10, we take away 5, then we're just 5, right? So it's not like we do 10 a day, so we're doing
Sure.
2, 3, or 5.
Even if we do 5 of those.
The other question I had. And maybe I'm just getting way overcharged by my alarm company, but those false alarm numbers are real low compared to the penalty that I've been threatened with if my alarm goes off now. So does that mean my alarm company is just pocketing that money? Cause they say it's because the city is charging. So I got some questions, and maybe it's that this is too low. So,
Respond.
What would be a false alarm on residents? What,
Like ADT, you know, those.
yeah, like,
Oh.
that's how I read it, is like, are you saying this is like a 911 false alarm, or is this if my house alarm goes off and PD responds because they think there's an emergency?
it's that, I just asked.
Yeah,
everybody.
right, so,
Yeah.
no.
No, I did. I have ADT and full security at my house at all times. I knew the answer to this question. I was so sorry.
But is the city being,
Yeah, so,
that's what.
so that, I think those are super low if like, especially if there's businesses in our community saying the fees way higher.
Chief Vignola said this was a case of people going on vacation and
Drive by.
and not even, not
False
notifying
alarm.
the police department that they would be out of town, and the alarm just keeps going off, they have to keep going on. And dealing with it, that's.
It's not, so it's not the alarm company,
Nuisance kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah. And again, I don't believe that happens very frequently when we were discussing it with staff. They said, I believe today that they sent out like a second alarm warning, but they've only done that a couple of times, just in the last year. So I don't think that it's escalated beyond that, we, at least from their knowledge.
Alright, thank you.
I think he said if you notify the police department before you go out of town, and your alarm goes off, they will charge you for that because they knew you were going out of town. And not that they were prepared for it, but they knew there was nobody to shut the alarm off.
I'm gonna see if you.
All I'm saying is it's happened once and they called me and said if it happens again. There's gonna be some charges, not the city, my alarm company, but they turned it off remotely once they verified that everything was okay.
Yeah, that happened to me too.
Yeah. But, so that also confuses me, cause they can remotely turn it off once they verify that they're talking to the right person, so I'm all confused. But
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
this would be a different situation where the
Okay.
police for some reason had to respond.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
We're in planning now? If not.
I've put it on 9, but it's at the very bottom, so if anybody has anything. Okay, so my question is, community trolley tours.
Julie Renee's.
It's very green at the very bottom.
Got it, great. Okay, CC.
What, when did we ever do this?
I don't believe we have.
We don't, it was an idea to add revenue.
Well, that it wouldn't even cover the costs at $50.
Well, I don't know that, I'm just saying, I think we should charge, I don't know what it costs.
And so this is something that we added, so it could be part of the discussion this evening. This was input following our October meeting from Counselor Court. So we've included her recommendation here and we can discuss that if we think it's feasible, if we do want to pursue that, if these fees seem in line.
Could you explain what you visioned with this?
I don't remember the context, but if somebody wanted to maybe take a history tour or something, maybe something that the museum could facilitate, we should charge for that staff member's time to do that.
Or sometimes like a conference comes into town and they.
Yes.
Or because technically we have 3 trolleys, one is in reserve, and so even like. The air park has their fly-in. If they rent the trolley or use the trolley to shuttle people from the air park downtown, if that was. Could be something like that trolley available. Which.
The legislature at one point had dignitaries come in.
Yeah.
And we wanted to show them the local region, including Western Oregon University and the adjacent community. As part of that visit had to do with exchange students. And so were that to occur again with a different group, then we would encourage.
Yeah, I'll just say I love this idea, and I know that the Museum Society has talked about this idea, which is per side the important. So city of Portland, from where OHSU is, or the ICE facility more closely to like downtown Portland, they rebuild that old ancient trolley line. And once a month, they do a paid you could pay to get a tour from a historian from the community to tell the stories of old Portland, right? So we were thinking that we could do that with some of our folks, kind of like what our museum manager is doing with homes, but at a scale of just like the story of our community with folks. And then also Ghost Walk kind of deal too.
So.
So love the idea.
I think it's a great idea, I just don't think there's enough money here.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a per hour rate that covers costs.
this is per hour rate?
No, one thing,
Yeah, it needs to be a per hour rate or something like that, because otherwise. I mean, I can't even imagine a trolley operator coming out and doing an hour's work, they'd have a minimum.
So, AC and Irvine and I were just chatting, I wonder if this, and Councilor Court gave me a direction here for what it meant. Was this just for the person doing the tour? Because Council Rowland's point, there is no way on this earth, it's enough to pay to bring a trolley out. Yes, this is just staff time. So to clarify, this is just staff time. And there's no guarantee we can get the trolley because that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
Right, you have the extra, but we keep it in reserve because they break down a lot. We have to have a driver, we only have a certain number of drivers.
And if the reserve is in service.
Right, and as we talk about different service. Changes in service, so, I mean, I like this idea. But council, would you be comfortable if we pulled this off as a separate item? To get back to the trolley committee and start talking about it?
Sure.
Would you be comfortable with that?
I don't even think we need to do that, to be honest. I think what we maybe do is what we've done in the past, when ARP was here, for instance, we started at the end of the line. And it was empty, so maybe if Amy wants to do a historical tour, or the society wants to do a historical tour, they do the same thing, and take the chances on whether or not they have that someone.
I think it's a good idea, if we can raise money and that's our goal, this could be a very profitable thing for the.
There's a lot of
community to have.
logistics involved, with what City Manager West is talking about.
Right.
But it could be, but the logistics could be done, because the way we're setting the trolley, remember, it's been a while since we've seen it.
Yeah.
Is that there's going to be different committees that handle that. And the end goal would be to have a trolley manager who would handle this.
Okay, let's do that then.
So we pull this off and we put it into that,
Yeah.
that framework that was started, would you be comfortable with that? Yeah. Does that help?
Yes.
And then we're gonna go really fast, right, from Sunday tomorrow. No other questions on Monday, anyone?
So Fred is here, there are questions.
And I asked a question.
Questions about land use,
And if there aren't any.
but that's not, I'm going home.
Well,
I think that $10 say hi to Paul for asking this very,
Yeah, well,
I mean, for the bike.
Fred, maybe this is a question for you real quick.
Okay. I really couldn't ask, I was trying to get myself, like, man, I could fit.
The bicycle campground.
Oh, that's a shot.
That's a Sean thing. Bicycle campground, we don't allow overnight parking or overnight camping for vehicles or anything larger than just a tent, correct?
So the rules are, so it's not, no vehicle camping, we have kind of. In practice amended that, cause some people, they go on sort of group bike rides where they have one vehicle and sort of takes their gear. And so we say that's okay, but you can't just like drive up and camp.
Okay, so there'll never be a situation where we're comfortable with like a hookup RV.
That would, I mean, that would be a whole different conversation, we've talked about
Yeah.
the possibilities of creating a municipal RV park or something like that,
which I think would be beautiful.
Well, I just know I've heard from families who have said like, hey, that park is there, we would love to come and camp there, and we'd be happy to pay whatever fee the city sets. And I was actually under the impression, cause I've seen RVs there.
yeah, that's the camp host.
That's the camp host.
We created one spot for an RV for the camp host.
And I was like, I assumed that that was allowed, and then when they did the research, so, okay.
Something to think about.
Yeah, highway.
So Fred, I would get out one thing.
Hi, Fred. It is something we've talked about in the past, though, is the area between the dog park and the bridge. We have a big stretch where we could put self-contained mobile units in there and earn money for people to stay.
Like some yurts.
Well, just drive-in RV pads,
Drive-in,
but
yeah.
it would have to be, like, it would be dry camping.
We have talked about that, and Sean has continued to talk about that, if there is interest in that, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. However, if there's interest in that, we're happy to do it. We'll take a hard look.
Yeah.
Sorry to keep going.
That's right.
No.
No, thank
please.
you.
Thank you.
Anything else on food?
Any other, we're good on building, good on park use, we're good on petty work. Yeah. We're good on enterprise, okay. Everyone, good.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think we have what we need, to prepare the updated document for that.
Thank you,
Can I
Mayor.
ask one
Thank you.
quick question on the signs, is it per month thing or is it just one time fee?
Question, what page is that?
10, sorry.
Yeah, because
Good
that's.
question,
the
because I
permit
assumed it
part.
was permit for the first time.
Yeah,
It's not gonna be,
I would say it's a flat,
Yeah.
application.
The flat rate, for the, it's just the permit itself. For the thing. Includes just inspection.
We did, yeah, started on that.
Permit,
But
There you go.
Well, I was thinking a sidewalk repair fee. For someone who doesn't wanna do it themselves or doesn't know where to go, we can. Sidewalk repair fee,
Oh.
fix your sidewalk.
It's hard to hear what you, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Sorry, I haven't had dinner, I'm starving, I'm trying to do something. A sidewalk repair fee.
Well.
People, I hear all the time, people don't know what to do, they know their sidewalk's broken.
You call a contractor
Yeah.
and they come out and they give you a bid, and then if you say yes, they'll come back out, they will do the work.
Sure.
It is something we did talk about though,
Yeah.
about getting youth involved in our community, coming out and building sidewalks. That's something we did in the past. It was very successful while we did it. But
we have done it.
yeah, I mean, but again, this isn't part of this,
Alright.
but
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's something we should do for the walkability of our community. I think it's great.
And for what it's worth, it is something that we've been trying to get back going with CSC. It's been not as, it's been harder than I would have liked to try to get it back going. We have actually done a couple of sidewalks each of the last 2 or 3 summers with CSC. But it's for whatever reason, it's turning out to be not as easy as before.
And I would just say, I know we wanna go, we can talk about this another time, but anytime we can do something like that and make like a little easier for the community. And maybe make a little, like the costs associated, feel like that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, even if there's a way to, people could basically apply and say, I want my sidewalk done this summer, city somehow could organize and contact the legislature.
So
Because instead of these little sections, it's kind of like, hey, one contractor, but everyone has to get theirs. They have to notify the city by a certain date that, yes, I want to participate in that.
You don't have to put a sidewalk fee on the utility bill, that what you're saying?
Heck, yeah. To be honest with you, like, I'm not saying I support that, I'm saying that that's something that people could say, oh, that makes sense. That's a service that we could pay for and it would fix the dang sidewalks in parts of the community where the trees have completely lifted the sidewalk.
So I will tell you, Public Works Director Fisher has been on me for a year to bring to you a sidewalk fee. It's not $1, it's more than that.
Yes.
This is not the realm of what we're discussing tonight.
Right.
But you should bring it to another work session.
But I think that's a good conversation to have with the community.
Or-
So anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, sure, we can say.
Discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, sidewalks are features.
yes, please.
Okay, I will add that to the future.
2 very old dogs at home.
Yes, Merle.
Can't live in there.
Earl, so we talked about it twice, back for one more time, as you recall, this today in back because I actually. Previous two times I felt pretty 50-50 about it. This time I feel like I've actually got a reasonably compelling rationale for it. This is a state program that's created to support moderate income housing, defined as anything 120% of area median income or less.
What is that in real numbers, Sean?
I happen to have that, so for independents, actually, it's based on counties, or for Polk County. For a household of four, 120% of area median income is $109,550 annual income.
What was that number? Sorry.
Sorry, $109,550 dollars is 120% of area median income for Polk County for a household of four. 100% is $87,640. And it's based on household size, so there's a different number depending on how many households.
I feel like dummy, but what does MIRL stand for?
Sorry, moderate income revolving loan fund.
Okay.
So yeah, so this is a bit of a convoluted program. What it is the city would get a loan from the state. That loan would then be passed on as a grant to a developer who would then build the, and I'm gonna use say lowercase a affordable housing, any, it's housing that's available to people 120% of area median income or less. It can be for purchase or for rent, either way. And then that development, whatever it is, pays a fee in lieu of taxes that pays off the loan that the city got to give the grant. And so typically it's sort of anticipated this would be about a 10-year loan payback period, which also coincides with the affordability period. There are deed restrictions and things like that to ensure affordability, and that people, so for example, developer builds a house that he sells to somebody making 120% of area median income or less. They buy that house 4 years later, they move, they go to sell it. There would be a deed restriction that requires them to be able to only sell it for an amount that is affordable to somebody earning 120% of area median income at that time. And then of course it goes a rental, then the management company would be responsible for ensuring people renting are income qualified. So the program, it would require city council would have to pass I forget if it's an ordinance or resolution to create the program. Then the state would have to do an intergovernmental agreement with Polk County. And then each individual project would also come to the city council to be authorized. So essentially you would create the program, and then you would still get to review each project as it comes to city council. Now, I mentioned last time, or the last couple of times, I was kind of 50-50 on it because it's a fair bit of complexity, a fair bit of uncertainty. It still is a fair bit of that, but honestly, I spoke to a developer who was very excited about this program, said, if you guys do this, I can use this program to build, a 40 to 50 home development, 1,400 square feet, three bed, 2 bath, and be able to sell those for about $350,000, ownership. And so that, I know last time we talked about it, you all, like there was, I thought I heard a fair bit of, well, we would like to be able to figure something out to help people, find ways to help people. And in this case, and so previously I didn't really see kind of how this program helped. In this case, what they're saying is essentially they can use the money to pay for essentially for the ground. And so normally that's where it's sort of, they have to put a bunch of their money into to buy the ground, and then they finance, the rest, they have to put more equity in. If they can use the grant to acquire the land, that makes a lot of the financing of everything else a whole lot easier. Makes it so they have to have this, so they don't need to put as much equity into the later financing. It really just kind of helps the financing work better when the initial investment is sort of already paid for. Because and then that flows all the way through the rest of the development up to the final price. So that's kind of why I came back, just to see if this was something you all were interested in or still interested in exploring. I said, it is something that we've had both, Habitat for Humanity and Polk Community Development Corporation have expressed an interest in. They see opportunities with it as well. I would say the other thing that this developer, said is he thinks, they believe they've got a way to actually be able to pay it off quicker, so like the affordability period or the loan period. Wouldn't necessarily have to be 10 years, they think they could be able to get it paid off sooner, which, kind of the risk of taking on a loan for 10 years, that was one of the concerns we had about the program. So recognizing it's late and we talked about a lot of stuff, I guess I just wanted to take the temperature on this and see, is this something you want to sort of take a harder look at? Again.
When you had that conversation and you threw that number of 350 out, when was that?
Just so I spoke with them 3 weeks ago, yeah, we met with them about 3 weeks ago.
350 sounds pretty cheap right now, so
Yes.
I'm just wondering if that's something you heard a year ago.
No, and actually, I actually asked him, cause I told him, I was like, based on that conversation, I said, we were gonna come to the next council work session and see if this is, and talk about this. And so I said, can you look at, whatever properties you would find appealing here and just run some back of the napkin numbers so that you can actually, sort of realistically tell me, yes, this is what we think we could hit in terms of the numbers.
Seems funny to say that 350 is affordable housing, but it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my concern with it has just been like the monitoring of it and the how to verify, so to me, it seems like if your comfort level is from that part of it is, you're feeling a little more secure with that or more comfortable with that.
That's my concern too, is I think it's a great program, but if the city's willing to take on that monitoring role.
I think for us, it's because they are homeownership.
Yeah.
And that's T restriction, which is very different.
So you have protections built in.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we would get an administrative fee off of this development, so we would be able to keep some to offset our costs. And I've been continuing to kind of pick at this, and the deed restriction is the key, and there are a number of good examples out there. Because then once it's on the deed, then when you pull the title for the sale, things like that, it's on there, so it makes it easier to. And that was always the question, is like, well, who's gonna catch this, and who's gonna say, this is happening, you need to make this work, and so that, at least it seems like the deed restriction is where that happens. I'm still trying to. Want to see if this is something that we need to make sure that we are very comfortable with, or just kind of put paying attention to. It sounds like perfect.
Will it affect the general fund at all? Will it affect the general fund?
No, other than the time spent, well, so let me take that back. So obviously the time spent on it is the thing, but then, it would be a fee in lieu of taxes. So, for the period of affordability, the city would not receive property taxes off of these homes that were built.
But
So
it's money we didn't already have anyway, though.
it is money that, essentially, it's yes.
And then once the affordability timeframe is over, then that money starts to go back up. So
Question about that, because the original window is 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so after 7 years, family A moves out, family B comes in, does that 10 years reset?
No.
Okay.
3 additional years.
Yeah, I love this program, and actually Western, we're actually looking at this cause it's also to improve former housing to try to. So these kind of programs are just like perfect for this kind of situation, I think, so I think it's a really good opportunity for the community.
So just a couple extra notes, if they are able to hit 350, that is right about what 120% of area median income is affordable for somebody earning that much. There's calculators and little, wiggle here and there, but that is about what, in terms of the price point it would have to hit would be around 300,000 in terms of the first product.
Do we reduce the SDCs on this type of project?
Not unless we did something.
And then so you said that there are ways in the program for your administrative costs to be covered. Not covered, but almost covered or covered?
I mean, I'd have to run the numbers, but we would get, I believe it was 15% of the loan amount, as an administrative fee.
Well, that's
So
great.
if I took $1 million loan,
That'd be
Yeah.
great. That would be really good.
And then the other question is, you know, it is sort of for sale and rental. Do you guys have a preference in terms of saying anybody, you know, both of those are fine, or you want to limit it to one? You're also able to limit it saying this is only if you're offering 80% of area median income or less. You can sort of reduce that affordability amount. Recognizing, of course, at least in the for sale product, you know, they may not be able to hit whatever that number is.
Been championing getting people into homes, you know, first time purchase homes. I mean, I think I would prefer the purchase model versus the rental model.
I agree with so many.
Right, your consensus on
I
that?
agree.
sounds like good direction.
Sure.
To go with the purchase at 120. Yeah, good. All right.
Okay, so I will go back and we'll have another conversation, but we're gonna actually, I reached out to the guy today, we'll have a conversation on Friday about this. And then we'll start looking hard at what we need to bring to you all. With all, you know, make sure we're comfortable with what we can do this thing.
Could this be in a particular development, or could this be within our community everywhere?
Listen, it would be an individual development, so like and it really, you know, so it's really not. In my opinion, I don't think it's useful for like I have a single building lot and I wanna build a house or a duplex. This is, in my opinion, this is better as a 10 unit or a 20 unit or 30 unit type of.
I agree. I just want, if we're gonna build affordable housing for people, I think it should still look nice,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and so that needs to be a proper space,
Well,
nice for people.
And
Well, we have this.
we have design standards and strategically thinking about what's around it too.
Yeah.
You don't wanna put it far away from the trolley line, or not that city is that big, but you know what I mean, all those things.
Well, I was gonna say, you know, and I will say that, I mean, that's, you only get so much control, and
Okay.
yeah, there's only so many properties that are available.
Right.
That make sense for this kind of thing, so.
But isn't there state law around affordable housing and where you cite affordable housing to begin with?
There probably is, but this,
Yeah.
I don't think this would qualify as like capital A affordable
Okay.
housing.
So you can't just put like affordable housing on the outskirts of the community, for example,
Oh.
right?
Yeah, that's.
No, I mean, these folks, I mean, they're developers, they want to build they wanna build a quality community.
Sure,
That's, you know, so they're not just, they're looking to kind of stick something somewhere.
So with that direction, what I'm gonna tell you is we're going to move very quickly on this, because this funding will be rolling out. And what will happen is the big cities will grab it. So we're gonna try and run real quick, you're gonna see this as fast as we can move it along. Without killing ourselves, right?
Well, it's impossible, or it's important to note that part of it is designated for.
Yeah.
So there is a set aside for rural
There
communities.
is.
And I'm gonna look into, you know, like I said, we can add criteria, or at the very least, you know, you'll get to review the project. And it'll have a pro forma, where they'll essentially demonstrate, like, here's how this works and here's how it's gonna hit this price point. And I don't know if we're gonna be able to kind of say, you know, something as, what do you call it, nebulous as like, well, these don't, you know, like, I don't know how much control we're gonna have over those books, but at the very least, we'll be able to say, give us some examples of the types of houses you build.
Or just have types of housing, like not the same thing would be nice. I've got the two questions not related to this one.
Are we done with,
Yeah, we're
the-
done for action on this, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Have you heard of a power outage that's scheduled for this week in Independence? And is that something that we need to notify people about? And I've also heard a rumor that I don't believe, but I want to confirm it, that there's a data center being.
That one cracks me up.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
Independence, and
So I wanted to confirm, because people are asking me and I'm like, I've never heard anything about
I
it.
really laugh, 'cause it's east of Independence, do you know it's east of Independence? The river.
But there is a power outage.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is Pacific Power, matter, not a city matter.
Okay.
Pacific Power will do all.
It doesn't affect the city, the hall or city civic center?
It's by the air park, right?
Well, no, I think it's on C Street, up on C Street.
Oh, by C Street.
So I know Pacific Power's been pushing out.
Yeah.
all the information,
Yeah, people-
staff came to meetings, I got this text.
If you're signed up for any Pacific Power. and
Yeah.
those,
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting emails, texts.
I'm just concerned because people are like, how are we gonna heat our homes? Why are they doing this in the middle of the
That
night?
specific power thing is not a city.
Not
thing,
us at
so
all.
I'm sorry. If I can control them, I'm good.
Well, I think it is important if we say anything that it's if you have not received a notification from Pacific Power.
I will let my operations staff do that, sure.
Yeah.
I've been seeing it getting shared, so hopefully the message.
Yeah. So I say that to say if we're going,
So the benefit of the CSER, because
I know.
we haven't gotten any
Oh,
notifications.
because I'm signed up for all of the alerts and I will sign nothing.
I've got the alerts too,
Yeah.
but yeah, but so I know it's happening in our neighborhood, but I'm surprised, people are asking me, how are we supposed to heat our homes when it's going out at 11 to 9 and not going on until 5 in the morning?
Right.
I was at home calling city power. And asking them that question.
Everybody's about telling me that my power is just on.
I do have one more question, so water faucet, water head, water replacement. Water meter, thank you.
It's late.
Yeah, sorry. There was some social media posts around previously improper setup of water meters. And is there, when that happens, is there, do they just call the city to fix that? Is there a process that we have if because I'm assuming there's a subcontractor that does it?
Correct.
So if the subcontractor does something that's not, that is not working, is wrong,
And it breaks.
and it breaks, are people gonna
Call us.
call the city and then the city will send the subcontractor back out to fix it?
Right,
Okay.
right. Call the main, I don't know, you'll get them when they need to go.
Awesome.
And take care of it. And of course, this after hours collectors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen very often.
sure. Sure.
And then is there credit back to the homeowner for the water that we gushing out into the street on the Saturday?
I do not know the answer to that, but I believe that the answer is yes.
Yes, so if it's caused by city equipment, anything caused by us, we do adjust that fully off their bill.
Cause I'm sure that would be
The next thing, which I think was supposed to, something 900 something gallons of.
Yeah.
And I think not only does it go up.
Yes.
Jesus.
Thank you.
So.
Alright, any other questions?
Thank you, council, for a long night.